It is the state of the franchise, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about in regards to the current state of the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, it's also a game day, so we got some dual action coming at you. We're going to talk about the Chargers versus 49ers, final preseason game of the year. But boy, oh boy, has this been one of the more eventful weeks in recent memory, and we're going to talk about it all right after this. But before we get into it, drop your spicy sourdoughs in the chat. Let's cook. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now. Jason Aponte in the building. Oh, we got Jason buying the first rounds. Shout out to Jason. Says, I got the first round. It's game day.
Hell
Appreciate you, my boy.
Hell yeah.
But Jason, I would have to say the 49ers are the gift that keeps on giving. Whether it's good or bad or indifferent, there's always something to talk about with this group. And no greater way to exemplify that is what happened this week. Obviously, we're going to talk about the quarterback 2 situation. That the quarterback 2, Jason, has dominated the conversation nationally for the better part of the summer, which is crazy. But before we get into that, we started the show last week with having some fun with the kicker stuff, the franchise kicker stuff. Well, we found out today that Jake Moody has a bit of a quad strain and is considered day to day, and he will not kick today. And this is after the game winner. But before we came on here, Jason, I was telling you, I was sitting right on the 10-yard line. So I didn't have any depth perception of like where this kick was. I just saw them call it good. I watched it about 2 or 3 days back, and I was like, oh, wow, that was not a clean kick right down the middle. So Jake Moody has definitely had a struggle, I would say, this preseason. But what's kind of your overall take with the Jake Moody situation as our resident kicking expert?
Well, first of all, Brad, it's great to see you. And it's great to see all you guys as well, too. I hope you guys have been not yelling at each other, touching grass, and being out there a little bit, because it is very close to the season as well. September 7th is our first game. This is the final preseason game as well, too. Can't believe that we made it. But shout out to everybody that's in here. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to both channels, all that stuff, But if I can go tinfoil just a little bit. Just a little bit. You got the hat? Where's the hat at? If we can put the hat on, okay.
Bro, my son got to it. It's seen better days.
It's all right. I mean, it's seen better days because you've been wearing the tinfoil hat for 3 years, which is what we're going to get into probably right after this as well, too. I don't think your son has anything to do with it.
That's the OG. This is the OG tinfoil hat.
That's the OG hat from the trade up to 3. So, like that,
yeah,
it's seen some things. Let's just say that. It's seen some stuff. A phantom injury to a kicker that right now isn't really instilling some sort of confidence. Kind of feels like we're preparing ourselves if Zane Gonzalez goes out there and bangs every kick right down the middle for a redshirt season for Jake Moody to collect himself. They'll use the injury as a way to have him sit, and they'll just say, oh, he just got injured. That's all. It has nothing to do with us having no confidence in Jake Moody. That's my tinfoil hat theory. The problem that I have with that go ahead, Brad.
I was just going to say that would be so wild.
So the problem I have with that is, Brad, it's only going to reinforce my theory or my way of thinking. Poor process. Over and over again, poor process. Blake Freeland, DeJuan Jones, actual football players were on the board. And here we are. He may not kick. He may not be ready for week 1. This is not off to a great start. This is me being dead serious. This is me not, trolling or, getting my jokes off. It does kind of feel like they're preparing you for, well, the quad injury is a lot more severe than we believed. But on the other hand, let's just say we take the optimistic approach. You could be showcasing Zane Gonzalez today for a trade. A lot of people are letting kickers go. Tristan Vizcaino just got cut from another place. Brett Maher is like now a kicker somewhere else. The kicking thing kind of shuffles itself around. You could find yourself on a couch and then end up being the Washington Commanders franchise kicker. Shout out to Joey Sly. But there's
Former
something
49ers legend.
right. There's something weird about this. There's something very weird about this. And if it does go down that he does not play this season, you mean to tell me that pick 99, which is a very valuable pick for actual football players, is going to be redshirted and will only add to the list of third round picks that we have issues with? I don't know what it is about the third round. Maybe if you give the 49ers a sign that says you're in the fifth round, the third round will go a little bit better. Like if you just tell the 49ers, hey, it's not a third round pick, it's actually a fifth round pick, it'll go a lot better. My tinfoil hat theory is that they're going to use this injury as a way to shield the young man, to not throw him out there right away and just say, hey, he was injured. It has nothing to do with the confidence that we have in him. That's my tinfoil hat theory.
I definitely see where you're coming from with the tinfoil hat theory. My response to that is, God, I hope that's not where we're at.
If that happens, Brad, that is such an indictment on the pick. Yeah. It just is.
Yeah, if you traded, basically it was a 7th round pick swap. So you didn't give up a 7th round pick. You just swapped locations in 2024 draft to get Zane Gonzalez. And if the 49ers really do feel that much more comfortable with Zane over Jake, that they would redshirt Jake, that would be a wild scenario. I hope that's not the case. But again, we've seen this 49ers organization they're gonna do what they think is best for their team, regardless of what
kind of theme of the show is. They're gonna do whatever they want.
They're gonna do what they're gonna do, regardless of public perception and perceived whatever. How we watch the draft, what they're gonna do, what they need to do to win football games. So we've that goes back to last year with keeping Jimmy Garoppolo. They are going to do what they're going to do.
They're gonna hedge.
I hope that's not the case. I mean, because if they do put Jake Moody on IR during preseason, he's done for the year,
for the season.
Now, maybe there's a scenario where they keep him on the active, then place him on IR. They can pull him off IR after 4 weeks, then re-sign Zane Gonzalez. I would feel better about that than
just a bit better.
Than opposed to just shelving Moody, because the way that I perceive Moody struggles right now, it's all mental.
It is.
That's what we said on the day he was drafted. We're like, all right, kid, now the pressure of the world is on your shoulders or your leg. How are you going to respond as a rookie, as a young man thrust into this role? Again, I equated the 49ers drafting a kicker in the 3rd, whether it's a comp late 3rd, I still equated it to being a top 5 quarterback, like in regards to pressure and immediate expectations, right?
Any kicker that's drafted, you need to immediately return value immediately, because you eschewed actual football players for a kicker. So he needs to immediately pay dividends. There's no development. There's no, we need to see what we have in the young man. It needs to be perfect when it comes to that. And I'll be honest with you, man, I would have thought another 3rd round pick would have had a phantom injury that would have put him on IR. And I would have thought that was Cam Latu, where they would have found a way to redshirt him to get him developed, because I don't think you can justify cutting Latu at this point right now. But I would have thought of any of the 3rd round picks, it would have been Latu that they would have said, hey, he sustained an injury in practice and he's going to sit out the year because we want to get his drops in order and all that stuff. Look, again, it's just my theory. It's just a tinfoil hat theory. I don't want this to happen. I don't have anything against Jake Moody as a player or anything like that. Like, it's never been my contention with that. My contention has always been the process has been poor. And that's all I'll say about it. That's it.
Right. We're draft nerds. We put a lot of value into positional value, where you take certain players, because that's what the draft is. It's the value game. You're trying to, that's why, like you made a joke earlier on in the show segment. If we just tell the 49ers they're drafting in the 5th round, they're going to hit on gem after gem, right? Because that's what they do. So I think someone in our last live we did, someone said I forget how it was phrased, but they said something along the lines of when they draft for need, it's a little scary, but when they draft for value, they hit
They
more
hit.
often than not. So it's just like how do we merge, just how do we draft for value all the time rather than just drafting for need? Because you hear about it all the time in the draft, the BPA, right? People, what's BPA mean? Best player available, regardless of positional value. So that's a philosophy that some people live by, some don't. We've seen the 49ers. Hey, they need an offensive lineman. They're going to draft Mike McGlinchey in the ninth or at ninth overall. They need an offensive lineman. They're going to take Aaron Banks in the second. They need a running back. They're going to trade up and go get Trey Sermon. You know, they need a quarterback. They're going to go up to 3 and take Trey Lance. They have proven over and over again that they will identify what they need,
Right.
and then they'll go get it. But I think that comment that I was speaking to, they tend to have a harder time hitting on those when they're trying to attack a need opposed to let the value fall to them.
Right. And that's the thing is they always will attack it doesn't matter. They eschew value. They don't care about it. Like they're just like, hey, look, we go into this draft and we go get our guys. That's it. And while I admire that, because that's usually my strategy to tell people, like, you know, again, wherever players are drafted, if they end up returning value, we're not going to remember where they were drafted. It's when they are not returning the value that they should be, is when we're going to look back and say, my goodness, man, why didn't you draft someone else, like, you know, going forward, right? I think my basis for all of this is all of the great kickers that are out there, you know, Sebastian Janikowski aside, whatever kicker from the 70s that you want to bring up aside, Justin Tucker was undrafted. Adam Vinatieri was undrafted. You know, Nick Folk's undrafted. Harrison Butker's undrafted. It's just not good process. And for a team that's loading up and your first few picks were in the third round, it feels like an arrogant pick. It feels like we're so good everywhere else. We don't need depth anywhere else. None of our players are going to get injured. None of our players are going to leave in another year or so. We are so good that we can use a valuable top 100 pick on a special teams kicker. And the way that many people rationalize it is, well, Bill Belichick was going to go get him. Well, Bill Belichick has drafted a punter and a kicker, and guess what, guys?
Years that we drafted a punter.
Right. And guess what, guys? Bill Belichick hasn't won a Super Bowl. Bill Belichick gets it wrong, too. Many people get it wrong. So when you try to justify the process by Bill Belichick did it, well, Bill Belichick hasn't won anything since Tom Brady left. Funny how that works when you actually need really good football players, especially quarterbacks, that kickers don't matter. And Nick Folk is their kicker. And somebody they didn't draft. Like, it's just poor process. I think we spent too much time on this, Brad. Just a little bit too much time. And I'm sure I'm not reading the comments right now because I want to stay focused on our conversation. And the comments are quick to throw me off. So like I'm not reading any of them. But I'm certain that if I click the button over and I look at the comments, they're just like, why are we talking about this over and over? And we're 13 minutes in. I don't blame you. But you have to remember, because I take such a hard stance, everyone's always going to ask me how I feel about this. And it's just part of it. It's part of the game. And
the other part of the game is it takes a couple years to evaluate these guys fully. So
kickers, right? They need development. They need to sit behind the rookie.
Kickers maybe you need a couple games.
If you're good, you're good. You don't need. Oh my god!
But in the same process,
sit behind Zane. Well, didn't I tell you that he should sit behind Zane? Zane's wearing 10.
Jersey. This
is the perfect time. No, listen. After Zane boots the game winner, I'm jumping on the post game with my Zane jersey. I told you that if you're going to draft a rookie kicker, he needs to sit and develop behind number 10. Isn't that the way things go? And I feel like that's a perfect segue into the next topic.
For real. Mohammed says, Jason, I'm going to need you to stop going live on YouTube with Bosa and convince him to sign that contract, man.
You know, look, and Mohammed's alluding to the fact that I do bully ball with the immaculate, incredible Steph Sanchez. And I agree, Mohammed. I'm like, listen, man. John Lynch knows who you are. We spoke with him. He's got a video on your phone. Like, why? Like, how is this not done yet? Like, why haven't you gotten this done? I will say this, and maybe you know what? We should talk about this before we get into the whole quarterback thing, because this is something that I feel like we should talk about.
For sure.
My panic level was 0 All training camp, 0.
Same.
When you hear John Lynch say, I don't like this, and now, like, I'll be honest with you, my panic level with this Bosa thing is at a 4. I don't like it. I don't like it. I want him to get in. I want him to get in there. I want him to get to camp. I don't want any soft tissue injuries. I want this done. I want it done. I don't know how you get it done. I don't know what the miscommunication is. I'm not going to speculate on that. But I'm a little nervous now. I would be lying to you if I wasn't nervous about the fact that Nick Bosa still hasn't signed on August 25th, man.
It really is a weird situation. And I again, we've all moved throughout this situation. It's going to be a foregone conclusion. He's going to get paid. Like, listen, it wasn't like this with other 49ers players, like where in the sense of like, oh, yeah, they're just going to get paid. It's going to be fine. Like we've seen stars have really hard battles with this 49ers front office, even dating back to Frank Gore. Frank Gore talked about how he sat in his contract negotiations and he was like, I can't believe what some of the things that they said and right. What they were trying to angle to justify the pay and whatnot. So it is what it is. We know contract negotiations are cutthroat in its nature because it's a push pull. Like you're trying to assert your ground, hold your leverage. It's kind of like playing in the trenches a little bit. It's just like you're pushing and you're pulling on each other. But the problem is that this organization, I think, has been so open about, hey, we're going to sign Nick for the last 2-3 years. Like Nick Bosa is going to be a 49er for as long as we have control over it.
And we believe that too, though. Like we believe that too. Exactly. Like again, people were panicked last year and they're like, I'm like, just calm down. They'll get it done. But now it feels a little different.
No, now it's officially into like the bells are ringing. Like,
yeah, it's nervousness. It's not
now weird.
It's not outright panic, but it is nervousness. And the idea that this could possibly bleed into the season when this team is in a very pivotal moment. Obviously, you guys know what I'm talking about, like with, the way they're going to be viewed. And this team, I don't think can afford to start slow this year. No. And they've only started fast one time under Kyle Shanahan. I think that's kind of where my concern comes in and how I kind of feel about it.
Seeding is a huge point of emphasis. They need to get the number 1 seed. They need
number 1 seed. Everybody has to come to Santa Clara. Everybody has to come to Santa Clara. Everybody has to come to. That's the way
they talked about how much the home field advantage and the crowd support helps them in these games. And going to Philly, being in Philly myself, it was a dramatic difference. Yeah. It really did feel like the entire city of Philly versus the 49ers, and you can feel and sense that energy. So if you can have that flipped in your favor, this team has made I think Kyle Juszczyk's talked about it, is like, we need to start fast because we understand that those early games affect us down the line. So having a guy like Nick Bosa ready to go week 1, and again, John Lynch inadvertently put a deadline on this thing, which was on was it last Sunday, that he's like, well, how much time does Nick Bosa need to be able to get back, get acclimated, and get ready for the season? He said 3 weeks. 3 weeks before week 1 was last Sunday.
Yeah.
We're almost a week beyond that. And listen, now that's why it's a concern. Like it's beyond their own concern, because I really don't believe they thought it would drag on this long. So
no, they didn't.
That's where we're at. With the reality of the situation is that Nick Bosa isn't signed right now, and that is a concern.
But we have to also understand that the 49ers do business a certain way. And whoever you want to blame for that, whatever, they're always going to try to, I don't like the term lowball, but they aren't going to necessarily cave immediately to a player's demands. Nick Bosa is in a particularly, I want to say, like, his situation is a lot different than a lot of other players. 1, he can completely hold out because there's no sort of fines or anything like that. 2, he can argue that he's the best at his position, defensive player of the year. Like, he can argue that. And anytime, we talk about like quarterback win-loss records. What's Kyle Shanahan's record when Nick Bosa plays every single game? And that's funny, right? Because, quarterback wins don't matter. Now defensive end wins matter. But Nick Bosa is like, he's one of those top guys in the league every single year, right, at his position. He doesn't have any pressure to be there because he's not going to have any sort of fines or anything like that. I'm sure he's in fine shape. I'm sure the quads and the legs are great, and he looks like an Adonis. But football shape and that is completely different. It's completely different for anybody like you, Brad. You can be in great shape and be working out, but you still need to get in there and like get hit a little and start to really hear the pads pop. It's more about if Nick Bosa does come back before week 1 and he decides to just go full throttle, then you're talking about maybe a possible hamstring injury, something that can hamper him all year. And then you're looking at a guy who you are counting on to be there every single game, to be the guy who disrupts everything. And now that is a vital part of your team. I mean, clearly. And if it doesn't go that way, you can start a little slow. Listen, I watched the Pittsburgh Steelers last night. I don't want to curse, but they're bleeping good. They have weapons, man. Those guys are ready to roll right now. Deontay, George Pickens, Najee and Jalen Warren, Freiermuth, Darnold Washington in the red zone. Like, those guys are ready to hoop. They're ready to play, man.
Pickett is cooking out here, man.
They look good, man. They're not like, you're going to Pittsburgh in week 1. The 49ers don't have a great record under Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan doesn't have a great record in week 1, regardless whether he's a coach, offensive coordinator, anything. Week 1 is going to be a dogfight in Pittsburgh. Those fans get loud. They're ready to go, and they look ready. Mike Tomlin's an incredible coach. Hasn't had a losing season. TJ Watt's a hooper. Their 4th-round draft pick, defensive end, is making moves like he was drafted in the 1st round. They're ready to go. Cam Hayward.
Dude is like a stud. He's so fast. He's so twitchy.
The Steelers are ready to go. If you think the 49ers, because they have won 13 games or whatever, and they did all that, are going to roll into Pittsburgh, and they're going to go in there and they're just going to dominate, I've got some bad news for you, man. And I understand you don't overreact to preseason, but what I'm going to continue to look at is Mike Tomlin's record in terms of being a great coach and getting guys ready. But the 49ers need to go out there and they need to play almost flawless football in Pittsburgh to get this one done, because they are not playing games over there in Pittsburgh. I'm telling you right now, man. I don't care that they were up 24-0 at half against Atlanta. Like, again, preseason doesn't matter. I am looking at the overall picture of what the Steelers are. And maybe the Steelers don't make the playoffs. Maybe the Steelers don't, maybe this might be Mike Tomlin's first year, but you can bet all the money in your bank account that they're going to be ready to go week 1 easily.
Not only that, I think people are sleeping on the Steelers. I
Yes.
really do. Like, I really think that people see Pickett. They don't think he's that great of a quarterback. But again, he's going to do the Purdy things. He's going to operate the offense. He knows how to push the ball downfield.
Yep.
He's got touch. He's comfortable within the scheme. That is going to translate to wins, and is going to be very difficult to stop. You got Najee Harris. You got Warren as the change of pace back.
Highsmith. Like,
they can run it down your face, and then they can do all different types of things with Deontay Johnson, like you talked about, Pickens. Like, they have weapons out here, man. Like,
Allen Robinson,
defense. That's like the 3rd wide receiver.
The 3rd wide receiver.
Their defense is stacked. The defensive line is going to create massive issues for the San Francisco 49ers. Spinning wheel of death. I can already see. So again, we're looking a little bit ahead, but the Steelers are for real, and they've been for real in my mind. Again, we're dynasty guys, so we pay attention to individual players, which means we by nature focus on the overall health of the team. The Pittsburgh Steelers are ready to surprise some people.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of people have counted out the Steelers because they don't believe in Pickett as being a guy.
And
he's going to prove he's going to be a top 15 quarterback this year. I really do believe that.
And that's definitely in the cards. But also, a lot of people are writing off the Steelers because they're like, well, Cincinnati's in there. Baltimore's going to bounce back. You've got all these weapons in Baltimore now. Lamar's got Todd Monken. You're going to look around and you're going to see, well, Pittsburgh's kind of being written off. Pittsburgh is not going to light the don't misconstrue what I'm saying. Pittsburgh isn't going to light the world on fire, right? But if you think that team is not going to be ready to play week 1 and is not going to give every single team every single week everything that it can handle, you're sadly mistaken. And this is a game that's going to be in Pittsburgh, home opener. Those fans are loud. They're ready to go. They've been waiting. And again, it's like the 49ers have to get off to a great start. They have to get off to a great start. They cannot start slow this season. I think of all the seasons that the 49ers have been under Kyle Shanahan, this seems to be the one season where they cannot start 3-5, 2-2, 2-3, whatever. Like, you've got to get out of the gate and be 3-1, 4-2. You've got to be able to start fast, because what we know about this team is they pick it up later on, but you don't want to dig yourself out of a hole every single year, because it's not ideal process.
Yeah. So again, getting a little bit ahead of our skis, but because we're talking about it because Steelers were just on TV and
it's recency bias. I just watched them last night in a bar. So
yeah. But also, this was my thought process all off season. People have been sleeping on the Steelers. People have been writing them off, and that's not something you should do. A Mike Tomlin team that's well coached, that has a quarterback now, has weapons, has a defense, a fierce defensive line. They're gonna cause some problems. So it's not a foregone conclusion that the San Francisco 49ers are going to just wake up and win that football game. It's going to be, like you said, it's going to be a dogfight. So let's kind of transition into kind of the recent stuff. Obviously,
we buried the lead for 25 minutes. We buried the lead. Look at us.
Stick around.
Yeah, look at us. We buried the lead for 25 minutes. I love this.
So yeah, we know what the leading story is. And before we get into it, you already know what to do. Make sure you're subbed to both channels and like both of these videos as we're streaming on both videos and all that good stuff. But the big national story, Jason, the backup to quarterback position. We found out that, hey, we'll lay it out and then I'll let you react to it. I'm sure you are aware and saw it all playing out. But the San Francisco 49ers, we found out, no Trey Lance at practice. Oh, why is that? Oh, it's because he was named the quarterback 3 on the roster, got the day off, and as a result, a firestorm from national media of Sam Darnold's quarterback 2. 49ers are trying to trade Trey Lance and are looking for all available options for Trey Lance on the future. And it just, it was crazy, for lack of a better word. It was a crazy situation to watch play out. What was your reaction to just kind of the initial kind of firestorm from national media?
Well, I think the funny part is that you and I were thinking about doing our show on Wednesday. And what do we always say? Like, whenever we do our Wednesday show, it's like something always crazy happens right before we go on. And you and I talked and we were like, you know what? Maybe let's push this to another day. Like, but if we would have stayed on schedule, we would have had to instantly react to all of these things. I'm actually happy to say that I've taken some time, went, touched some grass, walked around,
got some fresh air.
Yeah, got some fresh air and stuff, and did some other things. But this was always in the realm of possibilities. It always was. My pushback on the whole thing wasn't that, I believed that, well, let me rephrase that. I always believed that the talent and what they invested in Trey would always supersede whatever it is that they were investing in Sam Darnold. I still do have a controversial take that I think all 3 quarterbacks will be here this year. I don't think you're going to find anything that materializes for Trey Lance that's fair value. I don't think that this team is at a point where they'll just take a 6th-round pick for Trey Lance. Now, is that fair to Trey Lance? Probably not. He definitely deserves to go somewhere where he'll have a coach who wants him to play, lets him go through his bumps and bruises. And, someone did bring up something that's really good. It's just like, at what point does, Trey Lance being on the roster become something where Fred Warner's got to go to the podium and talk about for some reason? I mean, I think that's
probably you last week. When will this become a distraction that they
now
they can't look beyond?
It's starting to get there. Fred Warner's a linebacker. Why are you asking this man about quarterback decisions made by the coaching staff and the front office, right? And to Fred's credit, I think this is why they sent Fred up. He's never going to give the wrong answer. He's going to give you the cookie cutter answer. We love Trey. It's out of my hands. All of those things, right?
Yeah.
I think what this has really shown is that a lot of people will come to you and they will say, well, do you think you know better than Kyle and John? And my retort to that would be, well, if Kyle said, I'm starting Trey Lance over Brock Purdy, you wouldn't say, well, do you think you know more than John and Kyle? You wouldn't say that. You'd be up in arms. How could you bench Brock? How could you do that for somebody who, right? You would say all of those things.
Well, I think depending on who you ask.
Right. Well, and that's very fair. Depending on who you ask. My thing is, you can objectively look at this team and say, they have won a ton of games and find themselves thrust into the NFC Championship conversation every single year, despite the use of the draft picks for Trey Lance, and give them credit for the way that they continue to win. But that doesn't mean they escape criticism. And nobody's perfect. And then it's just funny to me how the people who are upset because they feel like Trey got a raw deal, which I don't think is hard for you to understand. I think that he might have. Things are in the NFL are not fair. Life isn't fair. And I've talked about this a ton of times. It's not fair, but it's what's happening. So clearly, regardless of what you feel you saw in the preseason, and for anybody that was actually at training camp, it's clearly that Kyle Shanahan is valuing Sam Darnold's process in the pocket more than Trey Lance's at this point. And that's why he made the decision. Yep. And at the same time, you can say, well, the track record could teach you a little bit more, but the fact remains he has a bunch of starts. Do I agree with it? No. Do they have to listen to me about whether I agree with it? No. And that's the thing. It's as fans, you have to be able to ask yourself this question. I'm good with what this team has done year after year, right? And everybody wants a Super Bowl, but then they realize how hard it is to win a Super Bowl. And that's why, there's just one guy that continues to be in the Super Bowl or ends up winning it. And that guy's name is Patrick Mahomes. But also, there's still a way to criticize and not agree with everything that they do. Because like I said, if Kyle Shanahan came out in preseason and said, hey, listen, we love what Brock did. And, but we're invested in Trey, and Trey was somebody, like if he said all that, imagine how many of you would lose it and say, what is he doing? But when it's something that aligns with your narrative, it's, oh, do you know more than Kyle and John? And the thing is football opinions are good for differing and they're good for discussions. Does Trey Lance have a fair chance? It's not fair that he got injured, and it's not fair that Brock Purdy played his ass off and played as well as he did. It's not fair, but it's the nature of the business. It is the nature of the business, and that's the part that I think a lot of people have problems with. So, ideally, I want to finish with this, because I know I've been talking for a while. I'm sorry, Brad. No. Ideally, I want to finish with this. God willing, Lord helping, Superman up there that I pray to, the 49ers will never have to play the quarterback 2 or quarterback 3 this year.
Right.
Brock Purdy will play all year. You'll never have to see Sam Darnold. You'll never have to see Trey Lance. Play the young man, keep him healthy, and if he plays all the games, then all this conversation becomes incredibly moot. So at this point, it's more about you are insulating yourself as a team that has gone through quarterback after quarterback. But, man, all of this stuff goes away immediately if Brock Purdy plays all the games all season, is never benched, and plays like the guy that we saw last year, Brad. I don't know if I rationalized it, but I've had a few days. I'm good. I'm good with it because, 1, it's out of my control. 2, it's still something I disagree with. But 3, it is what it is. And that's the last thing I want to say. It is what it is. That's it. The only thing I have a problem with is when Matt Maiocco is calling you out for the way that you're handling the media stuff, you know that you're doing something wrong. It was pretty bad.
Most of the media called out the 49ers.
It was pretty bad to see Fred Warner have to go up there and answer questions about the quarterback. And then to have Kyle go on KMBR on a pre-recorded interview, which is partnered with the 49ers, which is going to make things very easy for him as well, too. And you could probably say, hey, what do they have to answer for? It's just the quarterback, too. You know damn well what you have to answer for. You drafted Trey Lance at number 3, and Sam Darnold just got here, and you are essentially saying, we're done with the young man. He has played however many games, and we're done with him. You have to answer questions about that, and you need to be upfront with that, and Kyle will do that later tonight after the game.
Yeah, and that's what made that day so interesting, because the San Francisco 49ers are so buttoned up in that aspect of being able to get in front and control the messaging. This was the first time that we saw them not have control, and it was really kind of fascinating to watch from that aspect because they weren't prepared for it, and I think, John Lynch alluded to, like, we didn't intend for this to get out, and news travels quickly and all that kind of stuff, which makes it sound, and which kind of quantifies like their reaction to it. They weren't prepared for it. You know what I mean? Like they weren't ready. All the way everything got out, the whole thing with the practice, it was wild. I've never really seen it. So, but from that, not focusing on that aspect of it, just looking on the player stuff. If we were, again, being honest with ourselves and honest how we were evaluating all this stuff, we've talked about it. But when Sam Darnold got signed, when he got signed to the contract he got signed to, like, we alluded to it, but the writing was on the wall.
It was.
You know, I know John Lynch said that those trade talks didn't happen and all that type of stuff. He shot those
It
down
did at
from
the combine. It did at the
Deanna
combine.
Rossini. I know we heard about those when we
Everybody
were
was saying that at the combine, and it actually aligns with not knowing Brock's timeline. And you know what those trade talks were? It was trade to Minnesota to find a way to get Kirk.
So, regardless, that kind of, like, all of these things coming into play kind of speaks to the writing was on the wall. And so, like, I understand people were upset because of the trade up, the clear whiff. There's no other way to call it.
It's a whiff.
They missed. And that's part of the process you take when you draft someone that high with that many picks, with that much pressure, bring him into another quarterback's locker room. And the biggest thing that he needed was reps and not being able to get those. But again, what I do want to also preface, the reps thing, that's partly on Trey as well. We cannot just put it on the coaching staff because Trey got hurt. Trey broke his finger against the Raiders. He still threw the first touchdown pass of the year, but I've talked about this before. He got the start against Arizona, and then he got a knee sprain. I believe Trey would have started that next week against the Colts in the monsoon.
Kyle said the same thing.
I believe Trey would have beaten Carson Wentz and that trash Colts team, and then he would have been going into Chicago as the starter, and it would have been Trey versus Fields. And if Trey wins that game, his entire career, like we were calling it the butterfly effect. The butterfly effect of him going on, not getting hurt in AZ, beating the Colts and beating Chicago, his entire career looks different today.
And I was in Chicago for the Halloween game. When the offense was sputtering coming out of the half, Trey Lance was warming up with his helmet on, throwing the football, getting ready to go in. You know what stopped that? Deebo Samuel catch it. Where were you? Where were you when Deebo Samuel carried the entire team, and where were you when Deebo Samuel saved Jimmy Garoppolo's job? Yeah. Where were you? That's not speculation. It's not something I heard. I was at the game. I'm looking at the sideline. Trey Lance isn't throwing a football with his helmet. With his hat on. He is wearing his helmet, getting ready, throwing the ball with intent to get warmed up and go in. It is
Jimmy was playing really poorly,
really bad. It was third and 300 yards, and you throw a screen to Deebo, and Deebo literally brings it to the house basically for a touchdown. The rest is history. Yeah. And Kyle Shanahan spoke about after the Arizona game, if he would have left, he would have left healthy. He would have been playing in that Indianapolis Colts game. But you're right. The injuries have a lot to do with it, unfortunately. And the funny part about the Trey Lance pick was the reason the 49ers were looking to upgrade from Jimmy Garoppolo was largely due to health. I think one more thing we should discuss, Brad, because I think this feels like a time to retrospect and look back on the process.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford, Deshaun Watson, Andy Dalton. Literally every two-armed quarterback that was able-bodied under God's son was inquired about with the 49ers.
Joe Flacco was in
the building. Right.
He literally went to Santa Clara to sign with the Jets.
And then when they realized you miss out on Stafford, you're not going to do the Watson thing because it's just horrible optics when it comes to that.
Yeah. They had to bail on that.
Listen, draft night. Hey, Green Bay Packers, what about the number 3 overall pick for Aaron Rodgers?
Hey, let's get Rodgers. Hey, Rodgers.
Plan Z. Plan absolute Z for the San Francisco 49ers after they whiffed on every single opportunity as they tried to find someone to replace Jimmy Garoppolo who could stay upright and lift this offense a little bit more. I think that's another part of this story that we kind of forget. And unfortunately, for the young man, he was Plan Z. Plan Z.
I talk about this all the time, and I've talked about it for years since they've drafted Trey, even like after the fact in 21 and 22. I was like, man, it really starting to feel like the biggest issue was them trading up to 2 months before the draft started. Not necessarily like, obviously they missed on Trey, but the biggest issue was trading up to 3, probably with the idea to take Mac Jones, and then doing more work and realizing, dude, this guy's got a ton of off-field red flags. You know, the drunk video that came out of him and the club and the
100 million
Obama mask with the dreads underneath it. Like, you know, that was they're probably like, man, there's just too many red flags. He had the DUI stuff. Like, they're just like, this is concerning for us. And on top of that, he didn't have elite physical tools. He had the Brock Purdy build. He's the Brock Purdy quarterback before Brock Purdy showed up in the 7th round. And I always talked about, like, Brock Purdy is a perfect example of why you don't take a Mac Jones in a top 5, top 10, because you can find your Aiden O'Connells in the 4th round, in the 5th round. You can find your Jake Hainers and your Clayton Tunes that might be something that are very similar to Mac Jones.
Because you brought up Aiden O'Connell. What is it with Jimmy Garoppolo and having guys behind him that are like really good at throwing the football, that like this man has to look over his shoulder one more time? Poor guy, man.
Well, I'm not too concerned about Jimmy. That dude is getting paid right now.
Oh no, I don't mean he should be worried about that. Yeah, he'll be fine with his money. I'm just saying, it's like the guy's like, oh, I'm gonna be the starter, and nothing's gonna happen. Here comes Aiden O'Connell. He's throwing the football very well, like right now in the preseason.
So again, we're everyone's like, oh, there you hear the fire Kyle Shanahan, like he just blew this, but how dare they? Like there's a world where two things can be true, where this was a blown situation, but the 49ers are still one of the top rosters in the NFL competing for a Super Bowl with a 7th round pick in Mr. Brock Purdy.
100%. I think the two things are true scenario for me is this team, in spite of that whiff, is still constantly in the conversation, right? Like even with whoever's playing quarterback, right? Because it's so loaded and they don't pay the quarterback. But I do think we need to have a discussion about the way the quarterback position is evaluated by Kyle Shanahan. And and look, if you don't believe me, believe in the fact that Kyle loves CJ Beathard, Kyle loves Nick Mullins, Kyle loves Kirk. Even though, I think if things don't work out with Purdy, I think, prepare yourself. Prepare yourself. Always keep that in the back of your mind.
Let me ask you this question before you keep going. Is Brock Purdy the franchise quarterback right now, or is this year the tryout to be the franchise quarterback?
This is his tryout. If this team does not execute this offense the way that we saw going forward, and sure, a lot of that will have to do with the health of the players and everything, right? Like, let's just say in a perfect world, we get 17 games of Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, Christian McCaffrey. Probably not. Let's just say. But this offense takes a little bit of a step back. Perhaps the turnover luck that you saw with Purdy, where they were dropped interceptions, those turn into interceptions. And it starts to look a little bit different than it was last year. You can bet your ass you're going to hear a ton about Kirk Cousins next year being the guy that the 49ers want to bring in. I saw something, because a lot of people talk crazy about Kirk Cousins, right? And rightfully so. He's an easy punching bag. He wears socks with thong sandals. He's like goofy with the chains and everything.
He won a lot of people over with that quarterback series.
No, he was really good, actually. And he played through a rib injury last year, and he doesn't miss games. That's one thing. Kirk Cousins, I believe I saw this stat, I could be wrong, is the only quarterback to take bottom three defenses to the playoffs. Bottom three. No matter how far the 49ers fall off, they will never be bottom anything. Just think about that for a little bit. Because I know it's easy to pile on. Oh, he doesn't win on Monday night. Oh, he hasn't won playoff games. Oh, he wasn't this. He isn't that. You're going to give him the ultimate play caller. You're going to give him the best bunch of weapons. Love you, Justin Jefferson, but this is the best bunch of weapons you would be around and the best defense he's ever been around. Essentially, you would just need Kirk not to blow it. And that's up to you whether you feel that. But to find out that he's the only quarterback to take bottom three defenses to a playoff berth, I think you guys are a little bit just looking at how goofy the man is and not understanding how well he's actually played, and he plays every single game. But that's a conversation for another day.
Yes.
What I'm saying is
Next year.
right, for next year. For next year's quarterback situation, we'll be talking about that. That's fine. Always keep that in the back of your mind. As long as Kyle loves Kirk, that will always be a thing, especially since he's going to be a free agent. I'm not saying that that's what I think is going to happen, but also prepare yourself for any and everything. But if Brock Purdy looks like that guy that it was last year, then I think that's it. You just roll with him because it doesn't cost anything.
Absolutely.
It's very easy to just still load up on your roster in that way. Ideally, again, Brock Purdy plays 17 games. This team makes another deep playoff run. Hopefully, it ends with a Lombardi. And these questions get answered, and we don't have to discuss Kirk Cousins or any other quarterback at all anymore. And I think it takes us back to our initial point about this whole quarterback thing. Someone wrap this thing up. Wrap it up so we don't have to worry about Kirk Cousins next year or drafting another quarterback. Wrap this thing up. Please, someone, anyone. Purdy, do it. It's your time, bro. Be good for 17 games. Wrap this thing up so we don't have to hear about it anymore. But if he doesn't, but if he doesn't, get ready for Kirk. Get ready for Kirk.
But that's been the theme of the offseason, even with this backup quarterback situation, even with Trey Lance, like being named the third quarterback. Unfortunately for Trey, if he wanted to be QB2, he needed to take that job, and he didn't take it, unfortunately. He improved. His mechanics got better. He definitely showed that he has taken steps forward in his development. But when you're in the middle of a competition, they're not weighting your development against, like, they want to see that it's a bottom line type of mentality. When you're faced and put into a competition, they're not like, oh, well, you got better here. No, they're already in a spot where they believe that you might not be that guy. So if you're not, they want you to prove it. Go out and compete against this guy. Go out and compete against this guy named Darnold, who everyone says is not good and is trash and is a bust. Go out and beat him. And unfortunately, both two things can be true. Trey Lance looks better. He's improved, and you can see the glimpses of the potential and the ceiling that he has, but he didn't do it. He didn't take it. That's what we said at the beginning of the offseason. He's got to take the job. He didn't take it. Being even was his being at par with Sam was his ultimate demise. He had to be leaps and bounds, and which again, it's a hard ask, but the NFL does not care.
No,
they do not care, especially in year 3, and especially when they're trying to win a Super Bowl. They do not care. And I know that hurts people's feelings because they're super invested in the young man's success, and I understand that element to it. But this is a bottom line business. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. They're in the business of cashing checks and winning Super Bowls. And if you can't do that for them, they will move on. And I think that's what this entire exercise is with Trey Lance. They wanted him to be that guy. They wanted that prototypical frame of run, throw, just Josh Allen. We know that's what we were hoping for, but unfortunately, it just didn't pan out that way. And you can point the finger at whoever's at blame for it, but there's equal blame, I think, all the way around. You can look at the process, you can look at the evaluation, you can look at the injuries that Trey sustained. There's a lot of stuff that went into this, and at the end of the day, they found Brock Purdy. And if Brock Purdy can prove, like you said, through 17 games and go deep on a playoff run, he can take this franchise job. He's QB1 now, but he has an opportunity to take the franchise job, because let's not pretend like if Brock Purdy goes like on this massive decline, do you think Kyle is going to be like, oh, I'm not putting Sam in here? Kyle loves Sam. Kyle is going to it, and that's what Sam proved this offseason. People were like, oh, what did Sam do? Sam didn't turn the football over. Like, he might not have had phenomenal completion percentage stats in training camp. He might not have had all this stuff, but you still see the arm talent. And what is his biggest issue? Turning the ball over. And he really minimized that situation. And I think that's what he was working on. And I think people have a hard time processing it from that angle of like, oh, we know what Sam is, because they focus on the results of what Sam is, not the process of where Sam is now. And the process of where Sam is now, he was super conservative all throughout training camp, but I think that was by design. He was going out and above and beyond to not turn the ball over. Kyle's talked about it. Like, that's what it was. That was the evaluation. Sam, can you come in and take care of the football? We know you can do the wow stuff. That's not what we need to see from you. We need to see you take care of the football. And for the most part, he did do that.
Ultimately, what this decision comes down to is the quarterback process, right? And it's clear that I think we can all agree Trey Lance needs to play and develop. But during that development, there's those ups and downs. Now, while I've been a big proponent of I kind of know what Sam Darnold is, because everybody always, it's funny how he continues to get excuse after excuse while his coaches. Well, the coach didn't throw the ball into a linebacker's belly. Oh, well, his supporting cast. Well, the supporting cast didn't fumble the football, right? I have a hard time with someone who has thrown 55 interceptions in 55 games and how many fumbles on top of that. It's way more interceptions than games played and more turnovers. I'm sorry. So my thing is, what did they see in this training camp? What did they see during this time with that? They saw a guy who can process a little bit better than Trey can at this point because he's played in this league, and Kyle loves him. Kyle loves him. Like, don't even get that twisted, right? So I'm going to say this. I spoke to a former player, and he told me that during the end of the 2019 season and into the 2020 season, there were 3 players that Kyle Shanahan, when they played them, would not stop praising and talking about. The first one was in 2019 during the Super Bowl, 2020 during the Super Bowl. That young man's name was Mooney Ward. And then in the 2020 season against the Philadelphia Eagles, that young man's name was Javon Hargrave. And then in 2020, the person that he wouldn't stop praising with the New York Jets, that young man's name was Sam Darnold. All 3 of them were signed on the first day of legal tampering. All 3 of them. When they identify and they look at it, and you can't really argue with Mooney and Javon. Can't argue with that, right? That you're not going to argue with that. But when the coach likes someone, when the coach likes you, same thing with Quan Alexander, by the way. That's another example. Quan Alexander, Malcolm Smith. Those are all guys, Jerick McKinnon, all guys signed. The first day was possible to sign anybody. When they find the guy that they like, when they find the skill set that they think they can get the most out of, it will supersede anything that is going on in the building, and they will identify that player, sign him, and value be damned. Don't care. We want him. We've identified him. That was something that a former 49ers player, and you can say whatever, you don't know sources, cool, fine. All of that tracks. Every single thing that I was told tracks. That is why this is happening in the way it was, and we should have probably seen it coming with Sam Darnold because he was signed moments after he was allowed to be signed.
Yeah. And so you said it kind of at the beginning, and like if you're opening kind of like a monologue about this, it is what it is. Like, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, they will not be fired for this.
Nope.
They have done a fantastic job.
Brad, I will say this though. This is a very pivotal moment for them, for both of them. This is a very pivotal moment for both of them, because if you have to go back to the drawing board to find a quarterback next season, and let's just say whatever happens with Trey Lance and he's not on this roster, it will open them up to criticism that they've never seen before. Yeah. This is what's a pivotal moment about it. This team's still going to win a bunch of games because they're loaded and they have great coaching. Like, don't get it twisted. But if the quarterback position even takes a little bit of a step back, or it doesn't look like Brock Purdy is the guy that's going to be here for a long time, it will open them up to criticism like they've never seen before. And to be honest, they kind of deserve it.
Or if Sam gets in and does the same things that we've come to know. Like, so again, this is one of the most odd years, I think, that we've had covering this team, because the expectations are Super Bowl, and that still hasn't changed. But that's what the quarterback, who's Mr. Irrelevant, coming off UCL surgery on his elbow that happened in March, but we still understand it's still Super Bowl or bust. Like, not just make the play. If they don't make the playoffs, man, I don't even want to try to understand what that noise is going to
They don't
sound
make the
like.
playoffs,
Dude. That's the thing. It's like at a certain point, public perception is going to be public perception. And right now, they kind of unfortunately burned some of that good
Will.
standing,
Okay,
that
Will.
they had with a lot of the fan base, because unfortunately,
I'm
that's
still here.
the situation that you put yourself in when you spend that capital, go up and get a future franchise player, and all of a sudden he's your quarterback 3 years later after 4 games. And we understand why, we understand the hows, and there's plenty of nuance and all that type of stuff. But the public perception thing can be something that can't be underestimated, because when you have your national media, like you've seen when they've focused on Trey, oh, they came after Trey's neck. The second that they focus on Kyle and John, it could get wild fast. So it's just a pivotal year. I mean, we know that this window isn't going to stay open forever with all these players. We understand that there's high expectations. It's the fact that we knew this preseason was going to be the most insane preseason we'd ever seen. It's absolutely lived up to that bill. Like, we're going to go, like, Chargers play tonight. Trey Lance is going to be out there after not practicing. Like, this is the number one show, like, right now in the NFL. The 49ers, what are they doing? How are they operating their quarterback situation? It's been insane. So it's like at a certain point, and I think like you talked about how Matt Mayoko started calling the team out, anyone who covers the 49ers have taken shots from the fan base just trying to give objective opinions about the quarterback position.
Yep.
Like, we're out here, we're not responsible for this. We aren't making any of these decisions, but we're tasked with reacting and talking about it. Any single person right now who talks about the San Francisco 49ers for a living has taken personal, direct shots from this fan base on the chin for an opinion about the quarterback. Matt Mayoko got cooked for talking about Sam Darnold.
Shout out to Matt.
And his
Love
arm. Greg Papa cooked talking about Brandon Allen.
And so Darnold is much better. He's miles better than Trey Lance. He literally said that.
They have been, Mike
they're
Silver.
Prepping you.
Look
they're
at Mike Silver.
They're prepping cooked.
You. Mike Silver's turning out to be right on
but he hasn't. Let's be honest. Mike Silver hasn't missed on anything. The arm fatigue thing was real.
That's what I'm saying.
As much as we push back on it, it was real.
All these people who are tasked with talking about this have taken shots.
Yeah.
And now that this stuff has gone down like this, and then I think the fact that they didn't make themselves available to the media, I feel like they were very disrespected by that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, when you go on KMBR to explain this, which is the flagship 49ers station, and it's a pre-recorded interview where anything can be edited, it just feels weird. And again, I know a lot of people are like, why do you have to talk about the backup quarterback? You wouldn't if it wasn't Trey Lance. You wouldn't. You wouldn't. It would be no news. So when people are like, I can't believe a backup quarterback and we're getting this discussion, well, what don't you get? What don't you get? Why wouldn't it be a talking point? What don't you get? The young man, they invested so much in him. He's never really played. And I think, again, the frustration that people who wanted to see Trey play is we still don't know. We still don't know. I mean, if there was a large sample size, right, and so many quarterbacks have gotten 3 and 4 years, oh, well, he needs a little bit more, i.e. Sam Darnold. Well, he just needs a good coach, and he needs the best playmakers that he's ever had. He needs a really good offensive line. All the excuses that are made for other players who have shown you over and over again that sometimes maybe none of that has to do with it. Sure, it can help. It feels like Trey Lance has been just tossed aside without us knowing. I want to preface this and also say this. There is a world where Trey Lance is not a good NFL quarterback. I am not here to stamp my flag and say, oh my God, they blew it. They don't, right? There is a world where Trey Lance is not a good NFL quarterback. But the only way I can know that for certain is if he plays football. Baker Mayfield's trash. He's a starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Bucks. There's so many quarterbacks that continue to get chance after chance after chance because you've seen glimpses of it. And yet,
well, Baker led the trash Browns to the playoffs.
Right, that first year, and then what did he do? He fell off the cliff.
Well,
It's
I think the Browns organization is a trash organization.
he also doesn't study. He also does all he's
Baker.
He's commercial making Johnny Manziel. Let's just say Baker. That. He's commercial making Manziel, basically. He actually got some deals and everything as well too. But there's always
that was the book on him when he was coming out. Like he always had that kind of bravado or whatever the hell you want to call it, right?
So it's like I understand in the realm of possibilities that Trey Lance may not be a good quarterback. That's certainly there. But man, it feels frustrating to say I don't know for certain, and there's such a small sample size of it. But the 49ers felt in their heart of hearts, based on the way that Brock Purdy played, which he deserves to start, based on the way that Sam Darnold has looked, that this is the best thing for them going forward. Yeah. Now, you absolutely can trust the team because look what they've built and look at how they win games, and they've won so many games, 100%. And is it fair? No, but it's the reality. And that's why you have to take your feelings out of it just a little bit because you're not in control. But I despise the idea of well, do you know better than Kyle and John? We all have opinions, and they don't get everything right. It's just funny how if, the example I gave before, let's just say this. All right, so let's say this one. Sam Darnold was going to start. Oh, we're going to start Sam over Brock Purdy. Let's say Kyle Shanahan went to the podium with a straight face and said that to you guys. Would you be saying, well, I trust Kyle and John. I mean, they know more than us. Or would you be saying, what on earth are you doing, and why would you do something like that? So it's always funny when people try to tell you to calm down and trust John and Kyle when it's something that aligns with what they want to believe, as opposed to just being objective. And at times you can just say you disagree with them. It doesn't mean they need to be fired. It doesn't mean that you need to stop supporting the team. I've seen people, I'm not giving them another $1. Stop it. The game's starting in 2 weeks. You'll be watching every single game. Stop lying. Don't lie. Do not lie. It's fine. You're upset. I get it. We say a lot of things out of anger. I get into arguments and I might say something that later on I got to say, hey, man, sorry that I said that.
We got a passionate fan base, man. We love
We do. And I do want to say that too. I did send out a tweet about this, and I'm like, look, regardless of the ups and downs, the twists and turns, and the fact that the 49ers have the most scrutinized, insane quarterback situation in the NFL, maybe that I've ever seen, and Peter King echoed those sentiments on KMBR.
I've never seen anything like it.
What I appreciate always is that this fan base is passionate. They want to have conversations. They believe what they believe. At the end of the day, we all just want them to win. But the idea of just let Kyle and John do it. It's okay. No, you can disagree, but it doesn't mean you have to leave the team. It doesn't mean they need to be fired. It doesn't mean you're boycotting. It doesn't mean you're burning jerseys.
Right.
That seems a bit extreme, but you can disagree. Yeah. It's your right as a fan to disagree.
Absolutely. If the San Francisco 49ers were gearing up for a 3-win season, all hell would be breaking loose.
Oh.
We would be able to justify all right, it's time for a reset kind of a situation, but that's not the case, right? And I do think one thing's if we're really being objective about this, the players have been telling us that there have been concerns with Trey this entire time. And all you have to do is listen to how all the players talk about Brock Purdy since he's been playing and compare it to how they've talked about Trey. They always talk about Trey as a person. They talk about he's a great person in the locker room. They love him. They love his ability. You have Fred Warner going on busting with the boys, telling them we knew in practice he had it. Not from any game. From practice, we knew he had it. Guess who they've seen a lot in practice? Trey Lance. They've seen this guy way more than we have. So at a certain point, we can two things can be true. Trey needs reps, Trey needs to develop, Trey needs time, all of those things. While also the 49ers don't have that luxury at the current time, and his best path forward to getting those things were derailed by injury.
Injury.
And that is what it is. We can't go back in time. They gave him the starting role in 2022. They were so scared by how he performed. They brought Jimmy Garoppolo back.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that.
I talked to someone at the combine who told me that.
That's a hedge. That's an absolute hedge.
He said straight up, and he's been right about a lot of stuff. He said straight up they brought Jimmy back because they were terrified.
Hedge. Yep. That's an absolute hedge. When you look at the hedge of bringing Jimmy back with his track record and the price point of basically paying him nothing, that's an absolute hedge. An absolute hedge. And anybody telling you any different is either blinded or they just don't want to believe it. That's an absolute hedge.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I saw this all kind of playing out. Again, I reference it all the time. Did my film breakdowns this summer, all back to back. Not in the moment, just watched all these guys back to back, and I came away like, wow, Trey is so severely behind Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy from a processing standpoint.
That's it.
We see all the physical tools, and again, that's why people have such a hard time evaluating the quarterback.
The off-script stuff, you see him rolling out and making that throw like he made in practice in that game that T. Martin dropped, and you look at those things and you're like, man, I don't know if there's another quarterback on this team that can make that throw. That's true. That's true, but process. So this is the other part, Brad. This decision to go to or for them to have soured on Trey Lance has to do with them being able to see him for a long time in practice. And he's just not where they thought he would be. They thought the best course of action was to sit. Then they went and they gave it to him, and then they're watching him, and then they're hedging their bet by bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo. He just didn't get further along as he did. Now, whether that has to do with the injuries, Kyle Shanahan has spoken about that, whether that has to do with just his physical ability, I think a lot of that stuff is true. But again, it really just boils down to this is a brass tacks bottom line business. And it's not fair all the time. Life isn't fair. If life was fair, we'd all be, doing whatever we want to do in this world and never having any sort of anxieties. It's just not how life
struggles, nothing. Everything would just be lollipops and rainbows.
Right. And that's it. It's like, look, you can feel for the kid. The kid has done nothing wrong, then say all the right things, be exactly what you would like from a franchise quarterback that you drafted in number 3, says all the right things, goes to the podium, team guy. Obviously people are going to say whatever, the strip club photo. Yeah, all right. So if I was 22 and I had a bunch of money, you'd probably catch me there way more than that. But other than that, Trey Lance has done nothing but that, but that's not enough. And at the end of the day, it has to be not enough. It has to be what goes on the field. And the 49ers feel like they've evaluated him enough in practice and that they've had him in the building to make that decision. In that regard, I think that's something that is a question for Kyle Shanahan is what do you value at the position? Talk to me about – this is the question that I would love asked by the media. And I hate the fact that, we need accountability. They need to answer. No, Kyle Shanahan doesn't have to say anything. And also the media – they don't have to ask these questions. But I would love for someone to ask, what was the thought process that went in? Because I heard, Sam really separated himself 10 days away from Trey Lance. 10 days ago? So 10 days ago, the light bulb went off with Sam Darnold. Are you sure? Are you sure? You've got to send another question. You got to send another question. And the question that I would ask if I was media, and, probably, get a smart ass answer from Kyle about like how I don't know ball or whatever it is. But explain to me what exactly separated him from him. And was it process? Was it the throws? Was it his going through progressions? I would like to hear a detailed answer as to why you felt Sam Darnold had separated himself. And what goes into that? What do you look for as a quarterback? Which goes back to my initial point. We need to find out what this quarterback evaluation process is like and what they look for and value in a quarterback, which is why C.J. Beathard was drafted where he was, which is why Nick Mullins stuck around for as long as he did, when you can see that they didn't have it, right? Like, it's just it's too much of – two things can be true about Kyle Shanahan. He understands how to get people open. He understands offense. He understands the best thing about him. And if you listen to the playmakers thing, is he understands defense. Yep. What Kyle Shanahan is best at is knowing your defensive rules and using your defensive rules against you, meaning you're literally doing what you're taught to do, but I have installed a route tree and route combination that is going to make you do what you're supposed to do while getting my guy into space and getting him wide open. You can say that. That's where the genius part comes in. When people are talking about genius, they are talking about that. They are talking about a guy who understands defensive rules, who knows how to get his guys into advantageous spots, who knows how to manipulate your defensive rules against you. But what are you looking for in the quarterback position? What are you trying to find with that? And again, it goes back to what we were talking about. Stafford, Watson, passing on Brady, all of these things. We need to have a conversation about Kyle Shanahan, and I love him. We need to have a conversation about Kyle Shanahan and the way you evaluate the quarterback position. But thank God Brock Purdy's here, and he better just finish this off so we don't have to talk about it.
I think the overall theme of this show, of this offseason, of training camp, of preseason is process over results.
That's it. It's always been that, Brad. You know that.
That's why there's so many different takes from training camp. There's so many different takes from these preseason games because people are focusing on the results and not necessarily the process. Because in actually Trey's preseason games, the process has not been good, but the results actually haven't been bad because he had the game-winning drive. He had some really nice throws. He showed that high ceiling. He stood in the face of pressure, delivered darts over the middle. He did all of those things, but there was multiple process errors in regards to reading the field, throwing on time, and throwing near interceptions. Now, a near interception is an interception, so it will never be weighted as such, but that's why people have a hard time processing process over results. The results was favorable, but the process that led to the dropped interception is the problem. And I think that's where people have a hard time quantifying and evaluating the quarterback position because they're results oriented and quarterback evaluation is process oriented. If you're not executing the process, especially in Kyle's scheme, you will not find success. And even though the results have actually worked into Trey's favor for the better part of what he's done in preseason, the process hasn't been there, and it started in training camp. He looked better in training camp, but when it came to move the ball period, when it came to red zone period, he's throwing near interceptions. He's not converting. That's the process in which this is being evaluated.
And Brad, that's the thing. And this is kind of what we've been preaching this entire time. A completion doesn't denote proper process or accuracy. And that's why people are begging for context when you give out these completion percentage numbers. Sam Darnold and Trey Lance, according to David Lombardi, who I respect very much, and he's done nothing but be nice to me and be someone who is giving me great advice anytime that I run across him. It was the same for him. He had Sam Darnold and Trey Lance with the same. But when you make a decision like that, the decision is clearly not made on completion percentage. It's made about where did you go with the ball? Where was the ball placed? You can complete a pass and not put it in a place where that player can catch it and move in a direction up the field like it was designed to. It's still a completion. It's still a chunk gain of maybe 20, 25 yards. But if you put it in the right spot, now it's 40 and 50 yards. And possibly if it's Deebo Samuel, he can break a bunch of tackles. Process is always going to be over results in any sort of form of fashion in football. Yes. Drafting, scouting, the way that you go about everything that you do with the quarterback position, all of that stuff is absolutely.
The way you execute scheme, the way you execute your technique,
that's
process.
It.
Are you following your process?
That's it. And I know you guys wanted me to come on here and yell about oh my God, Trey Lance is getting done dirty. I'm trying to turn over a new leaf just a little bit, right? I want to try to understand this from someone else's perspective because I feel like a lot of people have their own way of evaluating quarterbacks, their own way. Everyone sees something different. Yeah. Everyone sees everything. We can all watch one play. If I don't know how many people are in here in this viewing or anything like that. We could all sit here and watch one play, and we can ask every single person that's in here, whether it's 200 people, whatever it is. Tell me what you saw on this play. Yeah, I know, Croc. I know. I'm sorry. Tell me what you saw on this play. And we might get 200 different answers based on what you know about, what's supposed to be happening based on what you think quarterback play is. But at the end of the day, everyone looks for something different. Everyone wants the guy with the rocket arm. Some people value the precision of the offense, all of those things. Croc, I'm sorry, man. I'm trying to be level-headed, man. Don't get me mad. I don't want to get all red on the camera and everything, man. Don't start. Don't start, man. Croc always trying to gas me up.
Aponte's been in his bag. He's been super measured. He's giving thoughtful,
I'm chilling.
Great takes, and
I'm chilling. Croc, this is me. This is me when I joined Locked On. Like, if you ever have me on Locked On, this is gonna be me. Like, I'm not gonna be on there yelling and screaming and everything. Like, that's not happening, Croc. If you got me on Locked On with you and the great Brian Peacock, shout out to them. I know you guys watch Locked On all the time. I would be just as measured, trying to give my best football analysis as best I can. But the point I'm trying to make is, when you watch quarterbacks play, and this is why it's kind of pointless sometimes to point out things on film, because you're going to get a bunch of comments, well, oh my God, what are you talking about? The throw was here. And, well, do you know the progression? Do you know where he was supposed to go with the ball? Do you understand what the defense is trying to do? Do you understand that you have like a 0.2-second window to throw that ball in there? And if you don't get it there, it's not going to be just an incompletion. It's probably going to be a pick. If you ask every single person that's in here, yeah, I know, Croc, but hey, look, I've been on, but I've been measured. I've been measured the whole time. I'm not going to get on there yelling, Croc. But that's the thing is, fans, evaluators, coaches, former players, they all see things through a different lens. All of us. We all see things through a different lens. And that's not to say that every single fan needs to read up on concepts or read up on what progressions are or go find a play art or learn. Like, I understand that. But the point is that everybody's going to see things in different ways. And I think that's kind of what has had the biggest division between the fan base with this is, oh my God, did you see Trey Lance on that throw on the run? Okay, but he had a wide open throw that he needed to let that thing go, and he didn't, and then he took a sack. It's like Kyle is watching some of these things, and he's just not as impressed as other people are with him. In the same breath,
exactly.
You just have to keep letting the young man play, and this is not the place for him to try that because you don't have a roster that can afford him that time.
I think it comes down to the average fan puts way more value into the things that Trey does really well or shows well in these preseason games. But what Kyle's putting his value in is the small things, the small details, the everyday details of operating his offense and doing it efficiently and effectively and being able to repeat. That's where Trey has struggled.
See it how he sees it. See it how he sees it.
That's the hardest part about trying to evaluate a specific team is you have to take your biases of what you want, and you're trying to, when I'm scouting certain guys, I know I'm scouting guys. I'm like, Kyle would never take this guy. I love him. He's never going to take him, though, because that's not how he's shown to go about evaluating this position. So when you're evaluating a team, you have to try to put yourself as best you can into Kyle's shoes, which means you have to scout Kyle. You have to understand his tendencies, what he wants, what he's looking for success in his offense. And unfortunately, what Trey has shown, even though he's shown development, he's shown cleaner mechanics, he's shown that he's still got that spicy arm where he can throw darts. He isn't at the level of operating the scheme from the finer details that Kyle requires. That was the biggest difference in training camp. It was Brock Purdy coming back with a messed up freaking elbow, cooking this offense up and down the field. Now, was he making mistakes? Yeah, he made mistakes. Everyone on that field made a mistake.
And also the 49ers defense is really good. The 49ers defense is really good too.
Exactly. But again, it's process over results. The process that Brock Purdy operates is so much cleaner than what even Sam or Trey was doing. Like, Sam was trying to save himself from himself by not throwing interceptions. Trey was just I'm just trying to play quarterback. Like, I'm trying to get out here and I'm trying to operate as best I can. But unfortunately, it just wasn't as clean as Brock.
I've got something.
Go for it.
I do think what's unfair is that the position that Trey Lance was put in, that he was put in, and Steve Young talked about this on KNBR. When you are put in a position where your back's against the wall and you only get a certain amount of reps and you only have preseason reps and you only have a certain amount of training camp reps, that you feel like every single throw, every single thing that you do is you trying to prove that you belong. It's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. For instance, and let me break it down to a level of like, the people that watch us, we have jobs and stuff, right? Your manager says every single report that you send in, anything that you do in terms of anything that I have to review, has to be damn near perfect. Otherwise, we may move on and look for somebody else at this point. Now, the job workplace does not, reflect, the NFL, right? Because if you get injured, like everybody's like piling on Colin Cowherd. I thought this was kind of funny that he said it because he's right. If you get injured in sports, you can lose your job easily. If you get injured working, any other job, you can't lose your job. It's like legally it can't happen, right?
Right.
But like, let's just say you were in a scenario where it was like that. It was just like everything is pressure packed because you're trying to prove yourself. And if not, management's kind of made it clear one way or another, whether through their actions or their words, that they're going to move on to somebody else. Like, and they're just going to make sure that they get somebody who's going to fit the role. I can't imagine that sort of pressure for a young man who needed to have the entire time where he can take those bumps and bruises, where if he makes a poor mistake, that he can run right back out on the next drive and not have to worry about, hey, there's somebody behind me that wants to play, or this team needs to win like right away. That's, again, the timelines were just off. I think, again, there was a bit of arrogance thinking that Kyle Shanahan could toe the line of his development and with this team and keep this team as a Super Bowl contender. I think that may be.
I hated that. I still hate that. Like, I understand where we are today. I will still never not hate how they managed Trey, because remember, Trey, you were there. You were at those training camp practice. Trey was cooking.
Yes.
We have not seen that Trey since, because
remember,
he dipped.
Yeah, but you know why he did, Brad? You know why that, and it's just they made him work on things that he wasn't necessarily, he needed development on. Like, he needed, when he was allowed to play fast, free, and remember the day that they unleashed the zone read, and it was there.
Wednesday when NFL media was there.
NFL Network was there.
Went crazy.
You went crazy.
We're like the future of our franchises here.
When Kyle was like, I need you to win from the pocket. I need you to not leave the pocket. I need you to go ahead and like make these quick throws, these quick reads that Jimmy Garoppolo is so good at, which is why Jimmy Garoppolo is a starting quarterback in this league. When that sort of changed was when you saw the playing field get leveled out, because Trey did have a sizable lead. He did. But when they made him work on the things that Jimmy was good at, like, they weren't going to make Jimmy run zone read. Obviously, that's not part of his game, right? Like, they weren't going to make him do that. But the idea of all that in the beginning, and especially that one practice, is burned into my mind. When they unleashed zone read, Trey had the defense spinning around. Like, they just, anything that he wanted to do, anything, whether it was RPO and he had a straight read, whether it was actual zone read where it's a run, or he just pulls it and he runs himself while reading the down defensive end, he was cooking. But when they started to put him in a position where, hey, I need you to do what Jimmy does well now, that's when the playing field leveled out way more. And Jimmy, who was comfortable with all that, was able to gain everything back. And then that's when it was just like, okay, he's not where Jimmy is.
When Jimmy started cooking.
Yes.
Remember, he hit Jalen Hurd over the middle? We're like, Jalen Hurd.
Dude, and then he underthrows the ball to Deebo Samuel. He comes back and he gets it, and he's like running through everybody for a touchdown. It's like, that's the stuff that I understand. Like, a lot of people will have their issues with reps, but Kyle wanted him to develop certain things, and it never felt like Kyle was satisfied with any of the development that he needed to see from him. And I think that's the crux of all this argument.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it too is confidence, and that was, I think, what we see. Again, you referenced Steve Young talking about. He is pressed. He has so much pressure.
Everything has to be perfect.
And again, that's a really hard place to be, like, as a football player. Like, you've heard George Kittle talk about it. Like, you want to step in between those white lines and you want to play free. You want to be in the flow of the game. You want to be able to just let go and have confidence that you know what you're doing, you know how to execute it, and you know if you play your game to the best of your ability, it's going to be good. It's going to be good enough. And I feel like Trey doesn't feel like that right now. He doesn't feel like he's good enough. He doesn't feel like he's good enough to execute the scheme, and you're seeing that compound in the form of mistakes. I would say lack of a trigger. Like he's more hesitant.
He's gun shy.
I think the biggest detriment to Trey Lance in this preseason has been the throws he has not made.
Right.
Like if
that's more concerning to me than the throws of like putting it in harm's way.
That Raider game, like that's why I could understand some of the there was overreactions, but I could understand some of it because he was deciding not to throw.
And it's there.
And Kyle to make.
And for as much criticism as Kyle Shanahan got for like, oh, you didn't call this for him and you're calling all these pass plays, Kyle knew that the offensive line was going to struggle a little bit. So the point is, three-step drop, hit the top of your drop, boom, there's going to be a guy open. I've run 2 curl routes on the outside. They're going to come right back. You know where you need to go with the ball. The ball needs to be out before the receiver's out of his break. Those are the things that would drive Kyle mad more than him seeing a throw, possibly letting it rip just a little bit late, but still him seeing it the way Kyle wanted him to see it. That's what he talked about with the throw that bounced off of the Raiders player and into the arms of Ross Dwelly. I thought it was a horrific process. Again, what I see and what Kyle Shanahan sees and the way he sees it are 2 different things, and it ends up as a touchdown, but Kyle was okay with that. I would imagine that those throws that he turned
okay with it.
Yeah, no, because it was there. It was there, but he just had to let it go,
Bad throw.
Yeah. But I would imagine that Kyle was more concerned less with that throw than the ones where it's like, man, I am giving you the layup. I am giving you the answer to the test. You have to hit the top of your drop and let that thing rip and get it out because you know you can't block. You know that your offensive line is going to have issues, and he notices that. He has a plan for all of those things when it comes to, all right, we're not protecting well today. We still have to be able to throw the ball to maintain the illusion that we can do that, or we have to keep you on your toes. He sees all that, and if it's not working in that way, that's what's going to drive him nuts more than that throw that ended up in Ross Dwelly's arms.
Yeah, and when we say layups, it's also not just the dump offs. It is I've schemed this open.
It's 15 yards and more. Like, you got to hit it.
When you hit your back foot and your eyes are on the target and it's open and you don't throw it,
rip it.
That is a bigger detriment than you trying to fit it in that window and it getting picked, in my opinion.
Yes.
And I think that's, again, the evaluation is in the eye of the beholder. People are going to be like, oh, well, he checked it down. That's fine. And it's like, no, Kyle is going to freak out because these coaches aren't holding these players' hands throughout these situations.
Right.
Oh, it's okay. No,
I understand
they expect excellence. You're getting paid millions and millions of dollars. If I design this throw, you better hit it, or else you're gonna get the wrath of Kyle.
And Kyle is sitting there, and I know it's a preseason game, but let's just talk about it like in a regular season game. These guys, Mike McDaniel talked about like not showering for days. Like they're game planning, literally sitting in that office over and over and over.
Different.
And when they design a play where they know, okay, this is cover 3, I've got a beater for it, and I need you to see it the way I see it, and you have to throw it when you're supposed to throw it. I've designed this, and it should be a big gain. It should be this. And when those things are not hit, that's when you see Kyle. He's done it with Jimmy. He's done it with every quarterback that doesn't see it the way he sees it. Like throw his hands down. Like, when Jimmy can't hit, when he can't hit use check on a stock rail, he's going to lose it because he's like, dude, I am literally like throwing it out there for you right there. You should just be able to let this thing rip and hit it. He's going to be wide open. And when you don't, or if you turn it down, he is going to lose it. Even if you turn it down and you throw it to somebody else and they break a bunch of tackles and it's a big gain. You didn't see it the way I saw it. You're not seeing the field the way I see you are. Therefore, you're not developing in the way that I would like you to at this point.
Yep. And that's it. That's the fortunate nature with Trey. And the unfortunate nature is these things are correctable. They can evolve and he can fix all of these, but the time really feels like it's running out. And that is where we're at with this whole Trey Lance situation. It's this weird double-edged sword where what Trey isn't doing right now at a high level, which is why he's probably quarterback 3, is correctable. And how is he going to be able to correct it? with more reps, with more opportunities, with more chances and ability. But the 49ers do not have that opportunity to give it to him right now. And they've made that abundantly clear by bringing in Sam Darnold. I feel like right now, Kyle Shanahan believes Sam Darnold can execute his offense the way it's intended to be executed better than Trey. And that's why Sam is quarterback 2. I don't love how this whole situation played out with Trey. I wish Trey was the quarterback of the future. I wish he didn't get hurt that rookie year and he stole that job from Jimmy and was able to beat Justin Fields and do all of that. I wish that happened, but it didn't. And now we are here. He gets hurt year 2, loses all that opportunity, and Kyle is ready to go with whoever's going to give him the best chance to win, and he doesn't feel like it's Trey.
Yeah, and shout out to Justin. He's like, shout out to Jason. Eli Ricks and Will Mallory look real good in preseason. I love that.
Your guys are balling.
But the other thing is, it's like, again, it's the feelings have to go like from this evaluation, and you have to understand that in Kyle's eyes, the development process has not gone the way that he thought. And there are other quarterbacks that do see the field the way that he does. And in that regard, that's why you promote them. And I think, again, regardless of how we feel, how the situation has been handled, it's still, at the end of the day, see it how I see it, produce when I give it to you, everything. Kyle tries to give you the answers to every test. Everything. Yes. Kyle is like giving you, it's like when, remember in school and they would say open book test. If you failed an open book test, you're in trouble. You're in deep trouble. Kyle gives you the answers to everything, right? Cover 2, cover 3, man press robber, everything. There's a way to beat it all. There's a way to beat it all.
He's going to be in your ear before the play. This is what you need to look for.
This is what you're looking at. Watch. This 2 safety look is going to turn into single high. He's going to drop down. Okay, so now your crosses are gone. So now this is the time where you may need to take that dump off. Like you may need to go there because they're taking all that away. But if they don't respect that, you still have a guy that you dump it off to, Christian McCaffrey, who can, take it and move it. It's always going to be that Kyle's giving you the answer to the test. Now, whether you believe that is good or bad, that's up to you, because I think there is a large group of people that feel like that's kind of what hampered Jimmy Garoppolo from like when he first started. He was kind of playing a little bit more backyard football. Sure, he turned the football over a little bit, but he was playing a little bit more free. And as he got into Kyle Shanahan's system, Kyle was kind of like, look, man, this is going to be open. Bang it on the seam, like he's going to be open, throw the football. And that's why kind of it seemed like Jimmy locked on. So whether you think it's good or bad, like that's completely up to you.
Right.
But I think all this evaluation process boils down to, do you see it the way I see it? Do you see the things that I'm trying to do for you and I'm trying to get guys open? Because regardless of whoever is going to be playing one of these 3 quarterbacks, they're always going to be receivers wide ass open every single day. It's about who can rip it and throw it. Brock Purdy did it at a level that nobody has done it since, and that's why he deserves to start. And unfortunately, Trey Lance would have liked to have been further along that in Kyle's eyes. He's not. But he believes enough in Sam Darnold that he believes that if, God forbid, something happens to Brock Purdy, that he's okay with Sam Darnold. And I don't really see where feelings get involved in that unless you want to get upset with the fact that, Trey didn't start right away. That's something completely different.
Yeah, and that's more, again, back to the process. So I think we've done a pretty solid job of attacking this whole situation. I think, again, it's just like everything else. It's extremely nuanced, right? There's so many different things that are taken into account, especially the way how you view things. So how you view things and how you expect things to go is going to change how you're interpreting and how you're evaluating. And I think, again, the hardest part about evaluating this situation is you have to put yourself in Kyle's shoes, not your own. You have to take out your ability to want someone to be successful and try to will them to be successful, and blind yourself from the realities of the situation and just understand it is what it is. Kyle Shanahan wants someone who's going to execute a scheme, and right now Trey's not where he needs to be.
Yeah, and I'm laughing at a comment that said that Jimmy has 2 rings. That's actually factually true. Like, it is actually factually true that Jimmy has 2 rings. But look, again, this is a pivotal moment because the trust John and Kyle thing is, you've got You've got a long track record of this team winning. And why wouldn't you, right? Like, they've earned themselves the benefit of the doubt 100%. But if this doesn't go the way that we think it will with the quarterback position, then they open themselves up to criticism from every direction, whether it be fans, media, national media, everyone. And I saw Ryan Clark say something about, well, why isn't Kyle Shanahan getting more heat for this pick on Trey Lance? You know why? Because the 49ers have made the NFC Championship game 2 times during this time in which they sent all those first-round picks, and they haven't had a first-round pick for how long? That's why he escapes the criticism for now. So for me, it's just like,
they're still in a position to win a Super Bowl. That's the thing.
And again, right now, they're still viewed right now, if you're doing power rankings, it's probably Eagles, Chiefs, and Niners, right? Like, or Chiefs, Eagles, Niners, 1, 2, 3. And the 49ers are in this position. So it's not as doom and gloom with this because the 49ers hit on Brock Purdy. If Brock Purdy can be that guy, then you basically offset the loss that you've had. And the 49ers have a first-round pick this year coming up. So it's like, I don't understand this whole, when are you going to blame Kyle Shanahan? They've won more games. Not only have they won games, they've won playoff games. It's not like they just get to the playoffs and just say, oh, I can't believe they showed up. They win playoff games. I don't understand, like, how you can automatically say, you can still say, maybe we have questions about the way that Kyle Shanahan evaluates the quarterback.
That's fair.
But you don't have any questions with the way this team is built and how they win games, because they win games and they win playoff games.
Exactly.
And that's the part. It's like, that's why Kyle escapes the criticism. That's why it's hard to blame Kyle Shanahan. Because if Kyle Shanahan, let's just say Jed York woke up tomorrow and said, Kyle Shanahan's gone, I'm out. There's 25 teams that would fire their coach. That would fire their coach. It doesn't matter what they've got going on. Like, it doesn't matter. Would fire their coach to sign Kyle Shanahan and let them lead this team.
They'd even take John Lynch. They would take the pairing. They would take both of them. They'd be like, come on, we'll take your whole staff. Bring on Chris Kosurik. Bring everyone. We'll bring Chris Forster. Bring the gang. Bring Johnny Holland. Bring all these phenomenal coaches along.
The only way, there's like 5 coaches probably that their team would say, I'm good. We got our guy. Andy, Harbaugh, Belichick,
Tomlin. I like Tomlin. I like Tomlin.
That's 4. I don't know. I would say that probably almost every other coach would be fired.
Sirianni. They probably keep Sirianni.
Sirianni might stay. Maybe Dabble stays because they like what they're building with the Giants.
Dabble stay.
Yeah. 20-something other teams.
Yeah, 20-some odd teams.
20-something other teams would instantly fire their coach and say, Kyle Shanahan's our coach, and you just had a whole training camp with your team. I think, again, like, that's the thing. It's like, see, all right, so look, I love the Jags comments and all that stuff because you know why? They have a coach who's moving in a direction with that quarterback. I understand that. So it's not necessarily that Doug Peterson's a better coach. It's not necessarily
a great fit for them.
No, exactly. And right now they're building something. They're building something. Pete Carroll, that's probably another one. I don't know if Seattle fires Pete Carroll for.
I don't know what's going on with Sean McVay, but he has.
So basically, and I love what you guys are saying in the comments because you guys are absolutely right. Absolutely right. Like, you may not fire Brian Daboll because of what he's done, what he's building with Daniel Jones. I get that. Like, I completely understand that. That doesn't mean that you believe that Brian Daboll's a better coach than Kyle Shanahan. The point is, it's just like, there's so many teams. Like, Frank Reich, you just drafted Bryce Young, right? Or right, like, that's Bryce Young's their guy, right? Like, or it's not CJ Stroud. I'm sorry, I'm just getting them confused. You're out, Frank Reich. You're gone. Like, you're out, bro. Like, you're gone. The Saints, you have a coach that you have a nice team. You're out, bro. Like, you're out. There's so many teams that would immediately move on from them to bring on Kyle Shanahan. Like, and that's the thing. It's like, the criticism doesn't mean that you mean firing.
Right.
If you have criticism, doesn't mean that you mean firing. But the whole idea of, like, you can't question anything that they've done is the part that I'll push back just a little bit on. That's all.
Yeah, no, I think for me personally, I feel like I've had Kyle Shanahan pegged pretty early from the beginning. I always thought that he kind of lacked that certain level of emotional intelligence, and that's not a shot as intelligence. It's called emotional intelligence when it comes to understanding what other people are going through to be able to put them in their best position to be successful. Kyle is very rigid in that regard. Like he's like, I'm going to make the system and you fit into my system. Not I'm going to fit my system to you.
See
Now
it how I see it.
we've seen instances where he's built his system around RG3 and like we've seen him do that. So he's not incapable of doing that. That's not what I'm saying. But that was always my hesitation with him drafting a rookie, was that he would have to have a guy that was of the mentality like Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is finding success in this scheme because he's Kyle proof. I've said it multiple times. Kyle is very, again, operate my scheme. If you don't operate my scheme, I'm gonna cook you.
No,
And
Brian. No, but look what Brian said. Pats might even fire Bill because Kyle would get more of Mac. And this kind of goes in line with what you're saying.
Yeah.
It goes in line with what you're saying.
Yeah, but again, like Kyle's not perfect. I believe that's an issue where he has in regards to just maybe going a little bit too far in that kind of rigid mentality. But when you find the right guys that fit that, the Debo Samuels, you saw him and Brandon Ayuk going like this, but now they figured it out and now they're moving in the same direction. They're not always going to see eye to eyes, even with his best players. But when they do and it clicks, that's invaluable. And with Brock Purdy, it's clearly clicked. I've never seen Kyle Shanahan talk openly and more glowingly about a quarterback than I have with Brock Purdy.
Dude, he smiles like a proud parent. And
because that's what I feel like. Brock is Kyle proof. Brock will just look at Kyle and be like, whatever, bro. And Brock's like, damn. Or Kyle's like, damn, he's right. You know what I mean? I feel like there's that respect level. Like they can work together. And then on top of that, Brock operates a scheme.
And that's the thing is, I feel like sometimes Kyle likes to poke and see what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, he wants to put you in the most adverse situation possible and see how
if you walk back to me after I tell you something like, nah, I don't see it like that. I actually see it like this. And you have conviction and you believe it and you grip it and rip it, Kyle's gonna respect you more than someone. Like, as much as people say Kyle wants a robot, I do think that is fair to a degree. I do think that that's fair to the degree of see it how I see it, rip it when I tell you to rip it. This is what you're gonna see when you see this defense and you see this look. But if you can go to Kyle and push back, right? All right. So the best thing, the Playmakers podcast. Let's talk about it again. And guys, I don't work for The Athletic. I don't care whether you listen or not. But I think if you want some introspect into like how Kyle thinks and how this tree is gone, remember that part, Brad, about him telling RG3 to install a play that he ran and how much. And what was the lesson with that, Brad? He made him run it. It didn't run well. He made him run it again. He made him run it again. And when they finally nailed it, Kyle calls RG3 over and says, why do you think I asked you to do that?
Yep.
And he said, well, you want me to do something that's comfortable with? He goes, no. I want you to understand that when I put a play in, when I do game planning and I put that play in, it's because I want it executed and I understand exactly what's going on. Does that sound arrogant? Sure. But I think he taught him a lesson a little bit about like, hey, something that works and something that you're comfortable with is not necessarily the right thing if you're not getting the looks. And I think that was what was really one of the most impactful things from that as well, too. So again, look, man, regardless of how you feel how the situation is played out, regardless of whatever you think should happen, Kyle Shanahan and this team, whether they miss in the third round, which I'm going to continue to harp on because like it's become my brand at this point, whether they don't have first round picks, they have literally built this roster to a point that every single year, everyone asks, I don't want this team to ever find a franchise quarterback. I don't want the 49ers to find a franchise quarterback. You know why? Because it's over. It's over for all of you. It's over for all of you, man. It's over for all of you. That's it, man.
All right. We've definitely I
We
mean
just
it
talked quarterbacks.
hasn't,
We didn't even talk about the Chargers game.
we
Like, what
didn't
are we?
even talk about it. And
It's
honestly,
fine.
we don't even know who's playing. Are they playing the
It's fine.
starters, man? I don't even know.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, I think they
I
are. I
don't
think
even
they
know.
are. I think they
Are
are.
they?
They're gonna start their kicker.
Trey's
They're gonna
playing.
they're gonna start their real kicker this time. He's gonna get you can definitely see that they're gonna be playing guys this week as well too. Again, just get out of this game healthy. There's nothing I can learn from this game that I didn't already think about this team. I think your biggest questions are going to be if unless you don't have time, Brad, because I know you're on daddy duty, so I know you're like,
No, I'm good. I'm trying to time up like when I got to get out of here to go to the game. But
how much?
I think the gates don't open till 5, so I think I'm good.
Okay. Okay. Matt said a super chat. I think there's a few super chats if you want to get to them, but
Yeah.
I kind of want to talk about this real quick. There's a few things that you should be watching for in this game, in terms of what's important. And I wrote an article on Niners Nation about the 5 players that have the most to gain and lose in this game. And you guys can disagree like you normally will in the comments and everything, or whatever it is, or agree. Javon Kinlaw has a lot to gain or lose in this game. Ambry Thomas does, because he can solidify this secondary in a way that we never thought was possible. If Ambry Thomas can start outside, or possibly Brad, there's even a scenario where Diamandola North starts outside in a nickel situation, he kicks inside, and then all of a sudden Ambry's out there. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, Cam Latu. Can you build on what you just did, right? Like, can you stack your preseason games? Can you keep going, and can you keep playing well, right? Number 4, Ronnie Bell. Are you going to solidify? Are you going to solidify the fact that you can't keep this man off the 53-man roster at this point? Number 5, Deshaun Jameson. The first time that you started touching the ball on punts, you look good. When you stop, doing that, and you muff punts, and it ends up, that's the quickest way to get you off this 53-man roster. So while the 49ers have, in my eyes, essentially 19 of their 22 positions on the field pretty much locked in, which is a beautiful feeling in any football team in this world. I mean, that includes Nick Bosa, but we don't know what's going on with that. Any football team would love that. There are some things that we should watch for, because if Ambry Thomas can continue to develop and play a little bit better than he did against Denver, I think he got dinged for like a 25.4 coverage grade. And that's because he got hit on that double move for like the 50-yard, and he had a penalty. But if Ambry Thomas can solidify the outside and you can move Demo inside, Demo could be a top 5, top 7 slot corner in this league, I think, immediately, like when he plays. You can solidify that. You figure out what linebacker 3 is looking like. And I think that's really it. Everything else is pretty much set in stone, like what you're going to be looking at. A lot of teams don't have that. Teams are using this week to evaluate where starters are going to be. The San Francisco 49ers are right now just like kind of playing with house money when it comes to all that. And again, Isaiah Oliver, same thing. Womack. I don't think Womack should play on the outside, but I think if you're going to put Womack in, you put him in the slot. I think his skill set's better for that, I think, more than anything. But Womack played better than Ambry Thomas did last week. Got his hand on the ball. He was the highest graded defender in the secondary. I think that all that stuff is interesting. There's still things for this team to figure out. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's important. Like, if you want to see the starters, that's fine. I don't think that this game is going to teach me anything that I didn't already know about this team. And I think we'll learn way more during the regular season. So, yeah, I just think that it's more about those extra positions.
Yeah, I wanna know what's going on with swing tackle. That I need to figure out. Jalen Moore made too many mistakes for me last week.
Yep.
I'm not a believer in Pryor. He's a big body.
Brian Baldinger is.
I don't
get it. I don't
get it either, because he showed a play where he got beat and he was like,
Brad,
I like this. And I was like,
Brad, Brian Baldinger used to play football, Brad. How can you disagree with that, Brad? What do you mean, Brad? He used to play football. He means that Matt Pryor's playing well.
Matt Pryor got beat instantly to the inside.
Brad, I watched every single Matt Pryor, and I was like, what is this man seeing that I'm not seeing? This man is getting fried. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. But Brad, he played football, and he's on NFL Network. He knows more than you, Brad.
Yeah, I have questions on why he chose to single out Matt Pryor.
Matt Pryor? Of all the people, Fisher had a better grade than him. I don't understand.
Hey, I love Baldy, man. Baldy's a legend, so
I'm
never gonna disrespect him. But like, he pulled a play where Pryor got beat, and the reason why it wasn't a bad beat is because Sam Darnold had the pocket awareness to understand the leverage of Pryor and get behind Pryor. So it actually turned into a block, but it wasn't a block to begin with. He got straight up cooked.
He got straight up whooped. Like, all right, look, man, look. I respect Brian Baldinger. I love his energy. I love everything that he does. Like, I respect all of that stuff. Respectfully, I didn't see any of that at all when I watched the film. At all when I watched, because I'm like, hold on. Baldy said that. Let me. Am I tripping? Like, am I tripping? Let me go back and let me watch. And I was like,
yeah.
The dude had 17 snaps and he was getting whipped. I was just like, I'm like, dude, do I not know anything about offensive line? Maybe. But my goodness, man, that does not look like what he was. I don't know. You have a tough time keeping Matt Pryor off the field. Dude, what are you talking about? Cole McKivitz is starting. It's no chance that he's going to start over Cole McKivitz. None. What are we doing?
Yeah, no, I don't know. That was crazy. I was like, what are we doing?
I was kind of hoping that you would be like, hey man, you're tripping. He was actually pretty good.
I talked about the play. I did it on the film breakdown. I'm like, dude, Matt Pryor got beat instantly to the interior. I mean, shout out Nick Benito. Benito was cooking us. Like, Benito's a starter in this league. I was like, hey, can we trade for Benito? Like, that dude was legit.
Denver's defensive line is hooping, and that's why you should be excited about the starting offensive line, because they did a good job for all intents and purposes.
So yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing. But Matt Pryor, Jalen Moore, for their veteran level of where they're at, I'm not seeing enough. I don't feel confident. I don't feel comfortable. Like Leroy Watson, like, I could actually justify it because he's a converted tight end to tackle, and he's playing just as good as those two guys. So if you wanted to sell me on on Leroy Watson, I could buy it a little bit more. But like guys like Il Manning, Leroy Watson, I think right now deserve a look over Pryor or Moore. Even Moore's still struggling, and I think that's a concern for me. So
yeah, that's
we'll
scary.
We'll see what's going to happen. But the swing tackle spot's not looking all that great. Obviously,
I missed Daniel Brunskill. Let me just make sure I put that out there again one more time.
Yeah, that's what we need Il Manning to be our Brunskill.
I miss
tackle
Brunny.
guard and center.
I miss Brunny. Thanks a lot, Rand Carthan. Thanks a lot.
So yeah, today it's obviously like D-tackle depth. Is a guy like Marlon Davidson going to be a guy? I think T.Y. McGill has solidified his spot.
McGill's on the roster. Done.
Is Barrett going to earn a spot?
Barrett's been hooping.
Can he be a guy? So that's really what today is.
Well,
I don't know what the starters are going to prove, if anything.
Let me ask you.
Just we need backup guys.
Let me ask you. The linebacker 3 spot, Oren Brooks hasn't been playing, but it seems like the team is very comfortable with him being out there.
Oren is just he's a solid dude. He's going to play his responsibilities every
D. Winters, Jalen Graham, Marcelino McCrary Ball. There's still things that need to be figured out here at this point. Like, and I think that's a part. And again, like, I don't want to get too wrapped up into, linebacker 3, because obviously I've voiced my opinion many times, and I honestly don't think it's an opinion at this point anymore. It's like, man, teams are not going to be in base. Like, you're not going to be in base, like, at all. You might be in base on 3rd and 1. You might be in base on 1st and 10. But for the most part, you're going to have to keep a nickel on there. That's the thing. It's like Oren Brooks, does he immediately step right back in? D. Winters has been, like, playing like Dre Greenlaw's clone, basically, like sideline to sideline. Jalen Graham's been very good. I just want to live in a world where Ronnie Bell was taking 99, Jake Moody was taking at the back of the 7th. I feel a little bit better in that. Like, if I live in that multiverse, that Cam Ladu was taken in the 7th and Jalen Graham was taken a little bit higher. Like, I think that's kind of where I've been. Like, I've been trying to live in a different multiverse that makes me feel better about the way this draft has gone.
I feel like watching the Broncos preseason game was just like a reminder of, like, man, we might be sleeping on DFF. DFF isn't going to.
Oh, there you go. I didn't even mention him. There you go.
He's not going to be your most physical linebacker. He's probably the least physical linebacker, like when it comes to delivering a blow and driving guys back, but he is always in the right spot. Yeah. He is always where he needs to be. He is always in the right gap. He is always playing his responsibility. And again, that goes further than just being able to tackle hard. So, like, DFF, he had a great game against the Broncos. Jalen Graham, look like a rookie. I mean, watching Jalen Graham go up against Quinn Miners, it was a lot different.
Hold on. Are
It
you
was a lot.
Are you not biased because Quinn
I'm
Miners
extremely biased.
he's
my
a
boy Quinn.
He's a Brad boy.
That's my guy. He's the first player I've ever had on the channel. That's my boy. But still, Quinn, dog. And Jalen Graham met a legit starting line right guard, and Quinn showed him what it was about to be in the NFL. So it's like both D and Jalen Graham came back to looking like rookies against the Denver starting offensive line. But they both have a ton of potential. They deserve to be on the roster. We got to figure out, though, is DFF, like I said, he was putting himself in positions to make plays. He was doing a phenomenal job. So we can't sleep on DFF. Marcelino McCrary-Ball has a lot of talent, but he doesn't look as locked in as I was expecting he was going to be. I was expecting more assignment sound football from Marcelino. I haven't really seen it yet.
Axel said, wow, the Brad agenda has been exposed. Get him, Axel. Get his ass.
Whoa, because I'm now
Quinn Miners. Quinn Miners. So Quinn Miners is over there. All of a sudden, Mike McGlinchey is over there. Oh, now who's the double agent? Now who's the double agent? Brad's the double agent for the Broncos.
Hey, Broncos country, let's ride.
Let's ride.
Let's go, Russ. The whole time we've been rocking.
My stomach hurts. Please don't make this happen, Brad.
Oh, how the turntables, baby.
Oh my God.
Broncos country.
I'm the Eagles double agent. I'm the Eagles double agent, and now he's the Broncos double agent. The agenda is clear. We have literally seen it. I can't believe it, man. Unbelievable, man.
I'm not even gonna deny it. We're here, baby. Broncos country. Why do you think I like Shanahan so much?
Please, somebody who's watching this,
Jason,
who's watching this, clip him saying Broncos country, let's ride, and put it on Twitter, please.
Also, Jason, this is real. This is real right here, and I'm gonna put fire onto this agenda.
Here we go.
I owned a Denver Broncos John Elway jersey.
No way! Wow, Brad. So wait a minute. This was the crux of the reason that people called me an Eagles double agent, because I told you back in the day when I used to wear a size 60 jersey, right? Because back in the day, you had to wear a size 60 jersey. You had to wear the biggest fitted hat to go on top. I had a Donovan McNabb jersey. I don't like the Eagles, but you see how all this has changed? You see how quickly this changes? So for everybody, like when we join, they're like, oh, hey, Jason's a double agent because he had, a Donovan McNabb jersey. This man has a John Elway jersey. And by the way, who coached John Elway? Mike Shanahan. All the pieces are now fitting. Oh my God. Brad Graham is now a double agent for the Denver Broncos. And please, I am imploring anybody who watches this, and I will send you whatever, $5 on Venmo. Please clip him saying Broncos country, let's ride, so we can have that forever. So if the Broncos do anything ever any good at all, we can just put that and then we just use it on Twitter. Please, guys.
Please. Yes. They got my boy Jonas Griffith. They got DJ Jones over there. They got K'Wan Williams.
See, and I bet you, I love Patrick Surtain in the draft. Yeah. Oh my God, man. What a show. Well, we had to end on a good note because I feel like a lot of the conversation has been very heated. A
lot of people have been stressed out about this quarterback thing, but the whole time it's been Broncos country, let's ride. So
no, the whole time you had no idea. Yeah.
So we've been talking about this for a while. I think we're just trying to find the timing.
No,
I think next week makes sense because
it does because we have a week off. We have a week off in between. So I think next week is when we're going to set up the best ball. Again, if you guys want to join the best ball league, make sure you sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code Aponte to double your first deposit up to $100. What we'll do is we'll break down basically whatever's going to happen on the Sunday game or something like that. Well, no, we have the week in between. So we'll just have to be talking about whatever.
That feels like a perfect time.
So make sure you guys, join. So when we set it up and we fill it up, like once we get to 11, I'm going to close the draft and I'll be the 12th. And once I'm the 12th, the draft will start and we'll do it live and we'll talk through the picks and everything as well too. So won't be this week. It'll probably be next week while we have to fill content before the actual week of football. So shout out to Matt. Make sure you guys are signed up if you guys want to play best ball with Brad and I on underdogfantasy.com, and make sure you use promo code Aponte.
Because
Double your first
what we'll
deposit of
do
$200.
is you have to have an account ahead of time. Not
You
everyone's
do.
going to get in because we
Right.
only have
If you try to make the
have 10
account,
spots, right?
right. If you try, yeah, we have 10 spots, including Brad and I.
Yeah, so it's a 12-team league.
Right, if you try to make the account right, then you may miss out on a spot. Like, that's the thing. So like you want to make sure that you're already signed up for Underdog Fantasy. We probably will make the draft maybe like $5 entry, nothing crazy. So, but again, if you
we'll
put
have to drop the link in the chat, and it's literally first come first served.
First come first served, or maybe we'll do it on Twitter, and we'll set it up, where you guys can just jump in. And like I said, once we get to 11, I will close it off, and then I will be the last one to join in, and then boom, as soon as I join, that's when the draft will happen. We'll probably set it up with a date as well too. So we'll probably set it for like $5, but if you put in $5, you'll get 10 because you can double your deposit up to $100 when you use promo code Aponte.
Perfect. So yeah, we'll get that figured out. We're definitely going to do it. We'll keep you updated. Obviously, a lot of stuff has been going on in our neck of the woods, and keeps pulling us back to the other conversations. We also had another super chat that I want to get to. Apologies,
Make sure you do it.
For the delayed super chats. AK says this offense is built for a Brock Jimmy quarterback that gets it out quick versus Trey. Our wide receivers thrive on yak, and O-line is not good at traditional pass protection. That is probably one of the more honest, real super chats we've gotten in a while.
That and play action it's all predicated on showing you something where you get linebackers to run up on during play action because you run the ball so well and they're trying to cheat. And once you get that cheat up,
suck the linebackers up.
That's the thing. It's like once you get that cheat up, you've got to be able to hit that right over their head. Like, and whether that's a layer throw in front of a safety, behind a linebacker, those are the type of things that you need to do. Like, and again, those are the subtle little things that unfortunately, in the eyes of Kyle Shanahan, just haven't been done with Trey Lance to the point where, he is where he is at this point. So, yeah, I think that's 100% true. 100%. Thank you for the donation, AK49.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that Trey can't be that one day. He's just not that right now.
He's not that right now. 100%.
It's going to take some time for him to work up to that.
And that's the thing, Brad. It's like, what if Trey lands in another offensive scheme, which, by the way, like half the league is like in using, Shanahan's scheme, whether it's just like by like, coaching tree or just people stealing stuff. It's what if he lands in a scheme where there are things that like play to his. That's what I know. We didn't talk about this, but when John Lynch says, I love the leaps that Trey took in an offense that wasn't tailored to him. Can you understand why there are people that are so upset by hearing that? Because what Kyle Shanahan has done, and regardless whether you agree or not, it's completely up to you. Every single quarterback that has been under center for him, he has tailored it to their strengths one way or another, whether you believe it or not, even if there is still just an overall Kyle scheme that needs to be executed. I know what your limitations are. I know the limitations of my playmakers. I know what we can do. And I'm not saying this about Brock, but every single quarterback has had this offense shifted to them one way or another, whether you agree with that or not. Like, there is film evidence of that. It definitely looks like that. And the messed up part is, like Barron says, Kyle Scheme says quarterback looks that way. The messed up part is maybe our misevaluation as fans and pundits and, draft nerds is while we believe because of that scheme that Kyle Shanahan puts in and is able to get guys wide open, that is probably the best place for someone to develop or land. Possibly for Trey Lance, it might have been the worst place for him to land. And I think that's a hard pill to swallow because we understand all of those things about Kyle's scheme. But Trey needed to go through all the bumps and bruises, make all the mistakes, and just, play through it. And realistically, maybe being here was probably the worst thing for his development. Maybe.
Mm-hmm. I think based on what we know about his kind of confidence, I think coming into the locker room with Jimmy was it. I understood the thought process, but you could also see the red flags of doing that because this wasn't a normal situation. This was a situation where the entire locker room rode like would ride through the depths of hell for Jimmy Garoppolo. And that's what they did when they brought in Trey. And that created a divide, I think. Like not like a crazy drama divide, but let's be honest. Whether you're in the media, whether you're in the fan base, whether you're in the locker room, you ride with your guy. And
Yep.
Jimmy was
And
unanimously
Jimmy's a guy.
their guy.
Jimmy's a guy, and he's a dude. Like again,
Yeah, they love him.
I understand. It's like we make handsome jokes all the time. But he's a guy. He's a dude. He wants to be one of the guys. He doesn't want to be, have his own office. And like he said, he prides himself on being one of the guys. Jimmy looks like a fun guy to go have a beer with. Like, and he looks like a guy who's supportive of everybody, never showed anybody up, anything like that. Like, regardless of how you feel about him as a quarterback, we forget, Brad. Well, not you forget. Your and our favorite saying, the human element of locker rooms and this is a hard part for fans to understand. Oh my God, can't you see Jimmy's limited? Oh my God, can't you see?
Right.
They won a ton of football games with him. They ride with him. That's important. That's very important, man. And I think that's a lot of what's lost in the discussion. Shout out to Jimmy, man. I feel like, go for it, Jimmy. Like, go out there and whip some ass in Oakland or Las Vegas or wherever the hell the Raiders play. Yeah, go for it.
And I'll say this, and you can take it with a grain of salt. I take it with a grain of salt, but it is something that I noticed. I went to Trent Williams' private premiere of his documentary after the Bengals game in 2021, and Trey Lance was there. All the offensive line was there. Josh Norman was there.
Your boy.
So a lot of players were there. And one thing that I did notice is that while
they got you on Twitter already. It's too late. Somebody clipped it already.
Did they?
Yeah.
While all the offensive line, all the top, kind of leaders of the room were kind of all in a corner, kind of hanging out. Trey was hanging out off to the side with a practice squad wide receiver.
Right.
And I was like, it's just interesting. Like, again, I took it with a grain of salt at the time, take it with a grain of salt now. But again, if that's your guy and like he's off to the side with a guy who got cut like 2 weeks later, like it was just interesting. You know what I mean? Because like that's a big part of this is that this locker room loved Jimmy. And I think Trey might have felt like the guy on the outside looking in that scenario, which has affected his confidence. And that's what it looked like in real time when I was there. I was like, oh, it looks like Trey's kind of off to the side. I'm an introvert. So like I can totally like understand like kind of being off to the side. I'm like, we hang out, I'm kind of just chilling. Like that's just how it is. So I can understand like if he didn't feel like a part of that, he could just be off to the side.
And by the way, to that point, when I first met Brad was very much like, oh, I'm just chilling and observing. No. If you're around me, you're not gonna be chilling and observing anything. You've got to like. I'm gonna bring.
That's
all
one
of
of that's what Aponte does. His energy is infectious.
There's no way you're gonna sit around. No matter what, there's no way you're gonna sit around me and be quiet. No way. When I first met Brad in Mobile, Brad was like, "Oh, what's up?" Like he kind of just was like trying to check out the vibe. And by the end of the night, I had this man ready to throw me through a window trying to show me offensive line techniques because I'm going to bring that out of you. And there is a little bit of that in football, like 100%. Like there is a little bit of that. It's like you got to be able to ride with someone who can bring that out of you. The idea of leader of men, that's something that's important, 100%. Yeah. But yeah, you know me. Like if we're vibing and we're chilling, like everybody was like, oh, we're going to go this and that. Brad was in the corner for a little bit. Nah, man, you got to get out of that. Like, you're not going to be able to sit around me and not be able to interact.
And that's what I love about Aponte is like he kind of like he has that energy, and I'm like, all right, I can vibe with this energy. Like we can, and that's why we can do a show for over 2 hours and just
I can't believe it.
And have a good time.
I mean, the only real reason that I could do a show for 2 hours is because Avery's just not here at this point. So.
So this one's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Jordan Elliott taking strays via super chat.
Yo, cook him.
Big shot. Hashtag block Flash cousin. Is there the backstory here?
No, there's a big backstory of it. I mean, no matter what you say about blocking anybody, Rayo accomplished that feat no more than an hour ago because he's always been block splash cousin, block East Bay Chris, all of those things. For anybody that doesn't know, Ryo and I have a great relationship doing Happy Gilmore quotes with each other, and that's the reason that we vibe. But yeah, Block Splash Cousin for sure. NBC big guy. There it is. I told you. NBC big guy. Brad. Jordan Elliott doesn't want to do any shows with us anymore because he's an NBC big shot now. But yeah,
he's moved up into another.
He's just past us now. We're just YouTubers now.
He can just post.
He's an actual journalist
on the timeline.
He's a journalist
in the middle of a 49er game, and
you
I
see
just
this guy,
looking
man?
at him. I'm like, I'm so jealous of you that you're just
see
posting soccer clips while we're out here in the trenches taking shots.
No, it's just Jordan's now like exceeded us. We're just YouTubers. That man's a journalist. But yeah, by the way, but that's the backstory with Ryo. Shout out to Ryo, man. Appreciate you, bro.
Justin says Sean Payton has been playing Troutman over Greg Dulcich. Any way we can trade? That's one of the wildest developments because I am a Broncos fan, so I've been watching this.
I was gonna say, I was gonna ask you.
I was like, why is Troutman starting over Dulcich? Like,
you know
what
why?
are we doing here?
You know why?
It's because he drafted Troutman.
Former New Orleans Saint. The bias is insane.
Yeah,
Greg Dulcich. Troutman. I would trade Latu, Willis, Dwelly, Warner, all of them for Dulcich. Like 100%. all of you guys can go. Bye. See you out. Like 100%. See you out. See you out.
100%.
Sorry. Doesn't make no sense.
I don't have a reason why.
That's
would
absolute bias. That makes no sense.
Absolutely take Dulcich in a heartbeat.
All of you guys can go. Kittle and Dulcich in a 2 tight end set. Dear God. Dear God, help all of you.
Yeah, I'll take that. I would do that. If they were out on him, I mean, you saw it. Like Isaiah Oliver tried to tackle him, and Dulcich said no. And then I forget who else tried to tackle him. He said no. Dulcich is legit, and
he's a hooper.
The fact that he's not a starter right now, that's wild.
Axel said Broncos are still gonna suck. Sorry, Brad. Cook his ass. Get him.
What did he say?
He said Broncos are still gonna suck. Sorry.
Oh yeah, what happened? What happened week 3 last year?
What happened week 3 with the pick
week
8?
3, pal?
The pick 8. Yo, look, I know you got to go because you want to get to the stadium, and I'm not trying to keep you for a little bit longer. But can we objectively talk about how funny that game was? Like, I swear to God, now we can laugh about it because I wasn't happy at that moment. But my goodness gracious, that Broncos game was absolute comedy, man. Absolute comedy.
Because all we were talking about was like, thank God we got Jimmy, man. Thank God we got Jimmy. And then it was just like, oh my gosh, we got Jimmy. Like, it was
my God, the dude threw a pick 8.
Dude, that was such a wild game.
Listen,
man.
If the 49ers are anything, they're entertaining. And at least you can say that. There's good football teams that are boring. There's bad football teams that are boring. The 49ers happen to win a bunch of games, and the constant stream of content, like, again, Brad, we're not the content creators.
No.
We're not.
We're the content reactors.
We're the ones that are trying to, like again, we're in a boat, and there's 300 fish in there, and we have an oar trying to smack 1 or 2 or 3 of them to try and keep them in. And it's literally we're about to drown because of all the things that come our way. So regardless of whether you like what we have to say, whatever, the 49ers are nonstop giving as far as content. I don't think there's another team that has a bevy of content creators like we do. And that's because, 1, we have such a passionate fan base, and 2, this team does not stop. They never stop, no matter what, man. Whether it's the quarterback position, which has been the most discussed in football history, whether it's drafting a kicker and a punter in certain rounds, whether it's, whatever's going on with, like, what you think, like, John, like, again, like, everybody wants to talk about draft picks, but they don't know who did John Lynch pick him? Did Adam Peters pick him? Did Kyle Shanahan pick him? Like, we don't know any of that stuff, and it's just the dynamic of all that. And then on top of that, the 49ers continue to win games regardless, and it's just, again, we're the best reality show in the NFL. I promise, man.
Absolutely. I just need this reality show to end with the ring sooner than later, because I don't know if this reality show is going to be able to maintain my blood pressure long enough. Jason, I know you alluded to it, But if we have to go through another offseason of playing Where's Waldo quarterback edition, like it's going to be
Brad,
great.
it's twofold, Brad. One, it's going to be the same thing over and over. But two, we're veterans. We're not new to this. We're true to this.
We are. That's
we
true.
can do it. Who's built like us to go through another quarterback controversy for next year? Who's built like us?
I was telling you the other day, like when this stuff went down earlier this week, I was like low key numb to it because I'm like, man,
too.
I've been through so much quarterback controversy in the last 3 years that I'm like, you know what? I don't really feel anything anymore.
That's why, if you guys have noticed, when everyone is going, insane with the takes and everything, what's the first thing I run to do on Twitter?
Post memes.
Memes! I go right to the memes. Bro. You know why? I love this team.
Through the pain, man.
I love this team. I'm always gonna laugh through the pain. That's the best thing my therapist tells me all the time. You have such a grand way to like be able to move through things, and it's always laughter. I am always going to realize one thing. We're passionate. We want certain things. It's out of my control. I understand you guys love it when I yell and I scream and like I get all red in the face, and I would imagine there's like a vein that comes like in the middle of my forehead. But I don't. It's not that I don't care. It's that when you start to realize that it's out of your hands, it's easier to just say, well, that's what it is. Like what are you supposed to do? But I still bring the passion. I still got it. But yeah, look, Axel said my therapist says I need to stop making everything a joke. Axel, that's literally what every single woman that's ever walked into my life would literally say. Oh, you're so funny in the beginning, and then after like 2 or 3 months, is everything a joke to you? Is everything a joke to you? I'm like, no, it is. Everything's a joke. Everything's a joke.
It is.
Sorry. Yep.
And somehow related to some movie line or movie quote, and it's just like,
oh yeah, that's the other thing. That's the other thing too. All right, can you stop quoting 40-Year-Old Virgin? Absolutely not. Never a chance.
Oh man, today was a good show.
It was
definitely. We went over 2 hours. Didn't feel like 2 hours, but obviously we had a lot to talk about. We had a lot to go through, a lot to go over. It's the first time Jason and I reacted to the whole QB2 drama that's been going on, the Trey Lance saga, and all the while this team is still gearing up for a Super Bowl run. So
probably best that I waited 2 days, honestly, because I feel like I gave
you gave phenomenal takes.
No, I just was like level-headed with it,
Yeah.
If you catch me 2 minutes after it happens, I can't believe, how could you? Now, I know that's what you guys wanted, but I think I was first of all, I had already kind of set things up for me to not be on, and then Brad loves, and that's it. Double agent Broncos and double agent Eagles fans. So like that's like this is what we learned.
Hey man, week 3 we mopped the 49ers. Get cooked, baby.
But no, like honestly, I think it was best that I took a step back for a little bit, try to understand, what was going on, why it would happen, and again, like people are always going to find a way, whatever information comes out, to confirm their priors, find a way to make it fit whatever there is. Sometimes the best course of action is to just talk about what's really happening, and I think that's kind of just where I'm at this point.
Yeah, I think we've both adopted the "is what it is" mantra of
"is what it is" how I live my life.
Is what it is, man.
It is, like no matter what happens, I'll just be like, damn, it is what it is. I don't know how many more "is what it is" I got in me though. Like I'll just be honest with you, but yeah, that's for sure.
You don't know how many you have left.
I don't know how many more I got in me. Like, and not about football. I think it's just like in life general. Like, like I don't know how many more I have in me, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Shout out to everyone with all the kind words.
I think we got one more super chat.
Yeah, I just seen it. Glad you guys appreciate the show. This is going to be our last one, unless you have the opportunity to keep us on. But this is going to be the last one we get to, unless you guys send one in. Clarence says Darnold's current floor more valuable than Trey's projected ceiling for needs of quarterback 2. I wish we could develop Trey. I hate for him to go somewhere else and thrive. I think that's a good comment.
Clarence, that's very mature of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely kind of where it is. And if you listen to certain people, they would, say the same thing or whatever. Yeah, I don't really have any retort to that. I think that's like a very easy way to kind of justify this decision. And I think that's kind of where we've been the entire time,
Yeah, I mean, he said it in about 2 sentences, and
Yeah.
it's a great succinct way to talk about what the situation is.
Real quick, NYCE 1030. Can you pull that one up real fast? Just real fast.
NYC, this one.
It's one of, yes. Jay, I know you're a hip hop head. What did you think about Complex Top 50 from New York? Seeing Jay-Z at number 1, it's perfect, right? I do have a little bit of issue as to where like Nas is, other people, but when you see Jay at number 1, that's where I would normally lean. I think, for as great as Nas has been with the King Disease trilogy and the 2 Magic albums that he's done with Hit Boy, he's actually put himself in a spot where he can make the claim that at the end of his career, he's actually done more musically than Jay-Z has. And this 5-album run has been nothing short of spectacular from somebody who's 50 years old. But I think when you talk about overall impact, when you talk about overall, like, collective, rock a crowd, all that stuff, it's still Jay-Z. But Nas has done so much with these last 5 albums that is truly impressive to watch someone of his age work with somebody who's a bit younger in Hit Boy and be able to put out this type of quality music. There's a reason that Nas did his first show at MSG and headline, and it was to do the entire King's Disease trilogy. And that's completely warranted, man. I love the fact that Nas has been able to extend his career to a point where he's not just a guy who is a mainstay, like, because of his name. He's actually making incredible music. So thank you for that.
What Jason said. He definitely
I'm just a big hip hop, like, look,
he knows much more about all that than I do.
But I know, I'm glad he brought that up because
area.
I definitely had that. Yeah. Nicki at 6 is crazy. That's way too, like, again, I don't want to downplay Nicki Minaj, man, but like we still have to talk about like Lil Kim and Foxy and like, like a lot of women and stuff. Like there's a lot of great female artists from NYC, but I think the way that they were building that list was based on impact.
Oh, we got one more. Justin, shout out the super chat. Appreciate everyone who sent super chats today. Justin says, I got one more. Say next year is worst case scenario. Would you guys trade up to 1 for Caleb Williams after what happened with Trey?
Justin.
I would love, in a vacuum, I would love Caleb Williams.
I would too, because he actually played at USC and he's shown me like a little bit more. Like
I've been on Caleb Williams before since he was a high school prospect. So he's a guy that stood out to me from the very beginning, and then from Oklahoma to then now USC. So I've been all over Caleb Williams since again before he was a college football player.
Justin, Justin, you will accept Kirk Cousins next year, and you will like it, pal.
You will accept Kirk Cousins for 3 future second-round picks, and you will like it.
You will like it. You will enjoy every minute of it. By the way, like I'm just letting you know, not Justin.
They're gonna franchise Kirko at the end. Then they're gonna do a basically like a equivalent of a sign and trade, and you will have to live with it for the rest of your life.
You will get Kirk Cousins, and you will enjoy that, Bucko, pal. All right.
Oh man, what a time to be alive! I would love to take Caleb Williams, but
I would too. But you need to put a bunch. Like you need to have like a ton of capital to get there. I think he's like the overwhelming. That would be essentially
it's like double what the 49ers gave up if they were trading from their spot where
it's essentially trying to get Trevor Lawrence, like almost like not golden child to the point where like you would need much more than a 1.
Yeah, it's a generational talent, and so it's going to cost a lot. So it looks like the Arizona Cardinals are doing everything they can to be that one with the golden ticket at the end. So we'll see. But again, preseason game tonight against the Chargers. I have no idea if the starters are playing or not. I haven't seen anything one way or the other.
No, Kyle said the guys are going to play.
Okay. So let's
get out there at the game. Make sure you find the next fight. Make sure that tweet banged.
That thing went.
That tweet banged. I looked at it and it was at like 2 million views, pal. That's why we got to start paying $8 for Twitter. They paying us for tweeting?
Yeah,
I'm throwing out banger. I'm throwing out banger after banger meme, and I'm not getting paid for this. Nah, man, yeah. Elon, come up off that bread, bro. I don't care if you're just like, oh, you pay for a blue check. That pays for itself when you get a check.
The second that they put that out there that they're gonna pay, I bought I've been so against the blue check thing, but for my other account, I was like, all right, we're doing it. Like, if they're gonna pay me for tweets, then that's what we do here. We get paid off our content. So,
dude, a homegirl of mine took home $300 extra from tweeting. I'm like, bro, what? I need to get in on this. I'm looking at my tweets. My tweets got 60,000 views and 25,000 views. And I'm like, bro, like, I'm missing a piece of the pie, basically just tweeting about the game and sending out stupid memes. Like, I'm not even, you know what, like, a lot of people have done is, like, they take the blue check and they just send controversial things because it gets people yelling at you, right?
Yeah.
But, like, it's like, no, it's 600,000 impressions before they allow you per month. Like, you need to have 600,000. And I did the math. I did the math. Yeah, I did the math. Like, I'm blowing through that just by talking about
Twitter,
the team. If I really wanted to get people riled up, I would just be like, Trey QB1 better than Brock, better than Darnold, and that's it. And like, just say things like that. Like, that'll just go crazy for nothing. Yeah, and if you get cooked and you mute it, it still counts as views. So like, like
sitting there counting your dollars at the end.
My homegirl said she made $325. I'm like, from tweeting. I'm like, here I am tweeting for free and giving out game.
Yep, exactly. So that's what we're doing. You got to pay content creators. It is what it is. That's why we're grinding YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. Harris, fire Shanahan.
Yeah, that's next.
fire Kyle and bring back Tom Sula. That would just bring the you know what like when you send something that people get mad at. I don't read the replies, but I imagine they sound like they're just not saying anything. Like, you're just like upset and just like babbling. Like, that's exactly what those replies sound like when it comes like that.
Yeah, pretty much. So this has been a phenomenal episode. Yeah, we got Chargers tonight. You're going to be doing a reaction show right after the game. Yeah, and
actually, tune into a special pregame sprint ride option at 8:15 my time, 5:15 Pacific time. Me and Andrew
Pasquini.
Yeah, me and Pasquini going in, and you want to hear his level-headed takes about Trey Lance and everything as well too. So make sure you guys tap into that. So that'll be going on 5:15 your time, 8:15 my time. And then after the game, post game, we might be unveiling a new post game format. Let me find out though real quick. It's something that I think you guys are really gonna like. Someone that is really, really intelligent that you guys are gonna enjoy. So
nice. So I'll be at the game. So you know what that means. I'll be posting pregame, during,
fights,
and post. 49ers brawls. This is where you come to find that content.
Can I just ask you real quick? What was that one guy doing? What was that one guy doing, getting in there, trying to swing on people? Dude, if you can't fight, go stand on the side.
I slowed it down. He wasn't even throwing closed fists. He was throwing open hands. And I was like,
dude, you can't fight.
And he was the one who, like, egged it on. Like, clearly, dude, I don't know if this was about Trey Lance, but it was right when the interception happened. These guys started talking to each other. And then the second you got one, where it got personal, the dude lost it, and he started charging him. He started
that guy with the Rice jersey. That guy with the Rice jersey destroyed him. Dude, bro, if you can't fight, get out of the way, man. Just get out of the way, dude.
He picked the wrong one.
That's how you learned. My God, man, I've never seen somebody be so eager to get into the fracas and just get unloaded on. That guy was putting him in the ground, man.
Yeah, I'm just like, tell instantly the dude didn't know how to fight. Like, and it was just like, oh, it's why he was the one initiating it too.
Right.
Like, he was walking up out of his seat, challenging them, and it got to the point where it was like those guys had enough.
Look, man, it's like I want someone to edit it, and like when he gets into the fight, it was at this moment he knew
that
he effed up. Like, I don't understand, man.
That
Like,
one
look,
look of him when he gets up and he's like,
yeah, like when he, like, the thing is when you, all right, so what happens when you punch somebody as hard as you can and that man eats it? And now he's looking at you like you're cooked now. Like,
Yeah,
because
Katie wasn't phased.
when you throw that first punch, you're throwing it with everything that you have in you. Your next punch is going to be less than that. And every punch after that is going to be less than that. If you can't hit him and knock him down or stun him a little with that first one, oh my God, you better just get out the way and run, because that man is going to fry you. And that man had hands. Just look, guys, if you're going to football games, I know it gets
Don't fight.
aggressive. Just
Don't
remember,
fight.
it's football, please. Just remember, guys.
Just don't
it's football.
fight.
It's football.
Everyone's going to throw – people are going to throw the B word at you. They might call you a name. Who cares?
Who cares? If you are loud and obnoxious, you are going to get that energy back, right?
Yeah, it's going to happen.
If you're
going to meet the
chilling,
wrong one, and he met the wrong one.
If you're sitting and chilling, nobody's going to come after you. But if you're there, like, pointing at people, being obnoxious, being like you have to figure out from there, like, you better know how to fight. Because if you don't
put yourself in that position in the first place, or just let it roll off the back. Like, just who cares, man? You're at a football game. Just let it go.
The next show, what we do is I want you to put the film up and we'll film breakdown it.
All right, this is where he started seeing stars.
Like, and listen,
it was over.
This is where, all right, so this is where this man should have pivoted and went the other way. But, like, yeah, exactly. Like Fernando said, can you break down the film on this? It's like, man, it's like when you swing and you catch somebody on the side of the head. Like, if you catch them up here, you're not going to do much. The ideal spot to hit somebody is like bridge of the nose, and you try to get, like, you've got to land on the soft spot. But he didn't even hit him. And once you get hit and that man did not fall, that man in the Jerry Rice jersey had heavy-ass hands.
Bro,
that was so bad. That was so bad. I was like, I kept yelling at the screen, someone help him. Stop him. Someone stop him. Like, because he's falling and he's got him on the ground. Like, it's so bad. So bad, man. That's your lesson.
I mean, that was a perfect video of just, like, how to not go about, like, fight in, like, a stadium. Just let it go, man.
Let it go.
It's not worth it.
No,
because now neither of those guys will ever be able to go.
You're never going to the stadium again.
They probably caught a case. Yep. Like, it's not worth it. And now you're like, listen, that guy got a little bit of clout off that, but it's not worth it. Like, it's not worth it at all. There's families around. There's kids around.
That's the other thing.
There's people just trying to vibe out and enjoy their time.
Don't
make a fool of yourself.
And that's the other thing. There's women too. Like, I want to implore women. We're like, why you guys want to stop fights? Please just get out of the way. Just take your people and just get out of the way, man.
Yeah, move.
Because it's not.
Like, there was a guy and his kid sitting right there. He got up, got his kid out the way.
Move.
Smart man. Got his kid out of the middle of it. Like, but listen, man, like, you got to keep your head on a swivel. Not everyone's going to use judgment to the best of their ability, but also don't egg stuff on, man. Just like it's okay to be the bigger person and just be like, all right, whatever. Like, and just be like, you're not, just let it go. Like, it's not worth it.
It's just football.
It's not worth it.
It's just football.
It's not worth it.
At the end of the day, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are not going to be like, man, he's riding hard for us, man. He was up there fighting. Let's go bail him out. That's never going to happen. So don't do that. Don't do that.
Anyways, right, hopefully we got some clean stuff at the game tonight. No fights tonight. Everyone be on your best behavior and do all that kind of stuff. But we'll see what happens today. Trey Lance is going to play. Sam Darnold's going to play. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about at the end of it. So it's going to be a wild one. Any last words before we get out of here?
No, check out the article I just posted on Niners Nation about the 5 players that have the most gain and the most to lose tonight. Me and Pasquini at 5:15 your time, 8:15 my time for Sprint Right Option pregame and postgame show. I'm working on. I think it'll be really cool. And I think that you guys are gonna like the guests that I have on for almost all of our postgame shows. I think it's gonna be a weekly thing, but stay tuned. I'm trying to work on that, but I think you guys will be enjoying that as well too. And again, if you want to be in the best ball league, promo code Aponte, sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Your first deposit up to $100. We'll probably set the league for $5, and it's going to be a 12-team league. So essentially, there's 10 spots. So when we throw up the link, make sure you guys are locked in, because once we get to that 12th man and we put it in, that means we're going to start the draft and everything, and we'll run it from there. So.
Absolutely. So check in with him after the game. I'll be doing a live as well, but it normally comes later since I'll be at the stadium. And again, I'll be posting content throughout the day across all socials and, of course, on YouTube. So make sure you check in and vibe with us. I'll try to get you all the nuggets I can get from this being inside the stadium. Shout out to everyone who tapped in with us today.
That clip is all over Twitter now.
Is it? Good.
That's it. That's it, bro. It's bookmarked. And if the Broncos do anything good, I'll be like, Broncos country, let's rock.
Good. Good. This is what we needed.
At least they don't got me saying fly, Eagles, fly. Like, that's it, bro.
All right, y'all. This was a phenomenal episode. We're gonna get out of here. I'm gonna get to the game. You already know we're gonna be keep bringing that content to you guys. Shout out to everyone who sent a super chat. Shout out to everyone who commented, and of course, clips our stuff, puts it out there, and has fun with us, because we really do appreciate it. That's it, right?
Right.
So in the final last words of this episode, Broncos country, let's ride.
It is.
That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now.